I'd like to call this meeting to order of October 30th, 2012. Clerk, could you please take the roll call?
Ms. Drummond?
Here.
Mr. Craney?
Here.
Mr. Holmes?
Here.
Ms. Ray Jackson?
Honored to be here.
Mr. Hall? Ms. Johnston?
Here.
Mr. Starr?
Here.
Mr. Trombley?
Here.
Ms. Osander?
Here.
Mr. Flynn? Present. Mr. Burt?
Here.
You have a quorum.
Thank you. Ms. Gray Jackson, will you lead us in the pledge? Mr. Mayor.
Hola. Thank you, Madam Chair. A couple of things. Today, of course, is our annual Energy Watch drill, and we could probably turn off every other light in here and still see pretty well if we wanted to participate. But we've encouraged citizens throughout South Central to turn the thermostats down and unnecessary lights out. And over the last couple of years, this has proven to be a good conservation drill. We hope we never have to use it in a real situation, but I think we've all seen the recent news announcements that the Cook Inlet gas situation is as immediate as we've been saying for the last several years, so these are good things to practice. We had a good meeting today. I was only able to attend briefly, but the folks from Cabela's, a major outfitting store, is coming into South Anchorage, and we met with the executives today and very excited about having a major new retailer here that will employ hundreds of people, and it'll be a great addition to the local economy, and they're also good social neighbors, so we look forward to them participating in any number of local events. And finally, Madam Chair, I did hand out two memorandum today from the mayor, one which outlines the efforts that we're going to do to help the tenants at the John Thomas building if the body decides to proceed with sale of that facility, and another one that explains a little bit more about I guess our response to what was in the paper recently regarding the Port of Anchorage expansion project and Marad's comments, so you have that as well. And when those items come up, I'll speak in more detail to them.
Thank you. There will be no chair report. Committee reports. Let's start with Mr. Birch.
Yes, the ad hoc committee on assembly reapportionment met on Friday at City Hall. I believe we had every assembly member there. We have up for first reading laid on the table this evening, basically four separate ordinances with four of the plans that were reviewed and considered. And I would also add that those plans for the interest of the public are available on the municipal website under the Assembly's link. And also out in the hallway here at the library this evening, at the Lusac Library, we have the large size exhibits of those four plans. But we hope to have that first reading this evening and public hearing on the reapportionment issue on the 13th. Assemblymember Traney and Hall and I were the committee. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Flynn.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The AMATS Policy Committee met last week, and frankly, we didn't get a lot done because there's some timing issues associated with a public review of our air quality maintenance plan. So we intend to hold our meeting in November, perhaps on the scheduled date of the 15th, but perhaps a couple of days later, in order to get that air quality maintenance plan out as promptly as possible. The issue at hand is how many air quality monitoring stations are maintained within the bowl to ensure that we comply with the requirements of the Clean Air Act, and the city and the state wanted some flexibility as to how many and their locations rather than the prescripted sites that are currently in the air quality maintenance plan. That's all, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Ms. Osander.
Why within the bowl?
Good news, Eagle River is not considered part of the non-attainment area.
Or Girdwood?
Correct, also Girdwood.
Ms. Osianter.
Committee members will be pleased to know there is no Title 21 committee meeting this week. Mr. Drummond's applauding. Basically, we've finished working through the chapters. Right now, I'm in process of reviewing the language that encapsulates the committee's decision, and will call another meeting if any issues arise in those drafts. Additionally, we may call a meeting in a few weeks to review Chapter 10. And then there is a work session scheduled on Title 21 on the 16th at 12:30. So additional items could arise from that work session that could cause another committee meeting to come in. But right now, committee meetings are on hold. Thank you.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Mr. Trombley.
No report, Madam Chair.
Mr. Starr.
Well, just kind of briefer again to explain the process we're hoping to get to on the budget, which is second public hearing tonight. There will not be a third public hearing, however. We'll get you some forms to use as the suggestion items to get your proposed amendments to the clerk's office, hopefully by the afternoon of the 7th of November, and then a work session scheduled to review the amendments and any last-minute changes on the 9th. So for now, again, if you could use the clerk's office as a clearinghouse for any questions administratively. And then also do note that the BAC is still working on a few requests. The BAC sent out a modified report on some topics that they addressed. I think it went out over the weekend. So if there's anything else hanging out there that you guys need from our Committee of Budget and Finance or from the BAC, be sure to let the clerk or myself know. Thank you.
Mr. Trainee.
Bill, is the BAC going to give us a complete report on the budget, or are they going to take specific items and look at it? Are they going to go through the entire budget?
They're not likely to take the entire budget in terms of a yes or a no or a pro or a con. They do have outstanding items that they are still working on. So if you have something specific that you'd like them to work on, I don't know what those are. I've not been attending their meetings, so that's just what the BAC.
And what's the date you want our changes to you by?
Afternoon of the 7th.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bill.
Ms. Johnson, may I ask a question? Mr. Starr, recently I've had some conversations that led me to have some concerns about the impact of the loss of the watershed management person. And could we ask them to look at that too, if you don't mind?
Absolutely, I can do that. If you want to phrase a particular question or just...
Can I email it to you, or?
Please do.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Gray Jackson.
No, thank you, Madam Chair.
Mr. Hahnemann.
Thank you. Just a reminder, we'll have the November meeting of the Public Safety Committee meeting will be on Wednesday, the 14th of November. I anticipate what I consider to be a wrap-up, follow-up meeting to fluoride. It could be fairly lengthy. We did take lots of testimony at the scheduled meeting in, I believe it was May, and had some requests to do some follow-up. And at the conclusion, we hope that the Public Safety Committee will entertain a suggested resolution of this body standing on fluoride before the end of the year, we hope. And then also, being that it's Halloween tomorrow night and trick-or-treat is upon us, so those folks that are going to have their youngsters out, please, if you would, make sure they're safe. Marked, obviously, we've got our first snowfall today, our first significant snowfall. It's sticking, looks like, to be, make sure your children are dressed warmly, of course, and then to be safe out there and check their candies and their bounty, if you will, from what they do for trick-or-treat. And then was able to participate with Trick-or-Treat Town over the weekend, a really relatively safe and fun activity. So I was able to do that and was very thankful to have the opportunity and watch a lot of kids. Actually, 3 different kids brought me some candy on the way back by as part of their, I guess you call it the toll, the candy toll. So it's really enjoying it. Thank you.
Mr. Starr.
Well, to Mr. Honeman, I've been watching the news with the, quite frankly, upsetting news of what happened to the East Coast. And so as Public Safety Chair, I would hope that if there's any requests for our services as a municipality or any specialty services that we have, perhaps you could get those in front of the body, either for additional appropriations to get our crews that may have talents or other municipal resources that could perhaps aid those other fellow citizens.
Will do. Thank you, sir.
Mr. Trainee.
Nothing, Madam Chair.
Ms. Drummond.
Nothing in particular, Madam Chair, other than my headdress is not meant to reflect on the large animal ordinance or anything else before us. But I would ask of the chair of the Title 21 committee, when are you expecting the revised Title 21 to come before the Assembly for public hearing?
You know, I wish I knew the answer to that. It's all dependent on how long it takes staff to craft the chapters. So far, I've only seen 3 out of the 14. The goal would be probably the beginning of December-ish, but it's still fluid, and it's all depending on staff preparation time.
Okay, I think the provisionally adopted Title 21 is scheduled to come before us on November 27th.
That's right, ma'am.
I'd prefer that they came together.
I would too.
Okay, so, and preferably before the end of the year.
Agreed on that one
Okay.
too.
Do you think we can perhaps?
It's beyond my control at this point.
Okay.
But I concur with the wishes. I agree with you.
Okay, great. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. We have,
Madam Chair,
yes?
I forgot to ask the administration a question. Can I? Mr. Vacalis, I've been working with Mr. Thompson, and obviously he's not here tonight. I don't see him at least. I've had some issues with some constituency on Boland Street, which borders right up against J-Bear, and it's been determined that the flooding has been coming from J-Bear onto Boland Street, and we've had some problems with some flooding into basements, and they would like an update as far as if there's anything being done. I know Mr. Thompson said that there's been some coordination between the J-Bear and municipality. Do you know anything about that? Can you update me on any of that?
I do not, but I can certainly find out, and I can also contact J-Bear and find out what they're doing about it.
All right, thank you.
And it's bowling?
Yeah, Bolin.
Yeah.
And I believe that there was some coordination with the Army Corps of Engineers, I believe. All right, thank you.
Mr. Trainee?
Just, Madam Chair, just for a second, George, thank you very much for having the city workers come out and attend to Campbell Creek. You may have seen on TV, we have a small problem with the trees that are down because of the windstorm in Campbell Creek. And I have photos of the city employees out there in wetsuits/waders trying to chip ice, and it was great to see them there, and my neighbors are really comforted knowing the city cares enough to come out, stand in frozen water, and try and divert the creek back into where it belongs. So thank you, George.
Thank you, and I'll pass that on, sir.
Okay, we have an interesting consent agenda tonight, and it's mainly a number of items that are laid on the table. I will read them into the record, and then we'll take a... Yes, Mr. Trainee?
If you want me to move this one, I can move this one, lay it on the table, and introduce it, and then we can get a second and a third. That way it's in front of us in 2 weeks, ma'am.
Which one are you holding up?
I'm holding AO 2012-108. This is from myself and Ernie Hall, ordinance of the Anchorage Municipal Assembly, providing for redistricting of the Assembly election districts. I can read the whole thing if you want. It's your choice, ma'am.
We have 4 laid on the table to do with redistricting, and I was going to read them all into the record.
I suggest what you might want to do, Madam, is let us do this one and do each one, because we're going to need 3 people.
Okay, that is fine. That's fine with me.
If you don't mind.
Yeah.
Second.
Third.
Okay. And this one is just where at. Do you want me to read the whole thing, Madam Chair, or do you want to do it? You can do it if you want to. I don't care. It's up to you.
You may.
Okay.
You only need to read the title.
I did.
Yes.
I already read the title, so if we've got enough, we're ready to go with this one. That gives us 3 for introduction, Madam Chair.
Ms. Drummond?
Thank you, Madam Chair. At the point of introduction, I just consulted with Mr. Wheeler. I would like to make it possible for me to introduce an S-version map that contains 3 single-member districts, and I would beg the indulgence of the body to simply modify the title of either of these, the one that contains the word single-member district, either AO 2012-110 or AO 2012-109.
Be my suggestion that you just come up with a new number if you have a new map. 212, 112 maybe?
One thing, Madam Chair, before we go on too far, on 2012-108, public hearing on this is requested for the next meeting in 2 weeks, which is, I think, the 13th of November, ma'am.
Thank you.
Just want to make sure we get.
And for the agenda, it will be item 9F1.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Yeah, Madam Chair, before we go to stuff we don't have in front of us, it would be my intent to move 2012, 109, 110, and 111. Can we just move all three of them?
Okay.
Okay.
Second.
Okay.
And those will be items on the agenda 9F2, 9F3, and 9F4.
Correct. And as with 212, 108, or 2012, 108, I think November 13th would be the appropriate public hearing time.
Okay, so noted.
Do we need to read those into the record again as well, Madam Chair?
I'll read the titles.
Okay, go ahead. Just titles only is fine.
For ordinance number 2012-109, an ordinance of the Anchorage Assembly providing for the redistricting of the Assembly election districts and modifying which district is a single-member district. 9F3, an ordinance of the Anchorage Assembly providing for the redistricting of the Assembly election districts and modifying which district is a single-member district. And 9F4, an ordinance of the Anchorage Assembly providing redistricting of the Assembly election districts. Mr. Trainee.
Nothing, ma'am.
Oh, okay. Mr. Flynn.
Thank you, Madam Chair. A question for council. Mr. Wheeler, I'm looking at the title of 212-108, we'll call it the status quo plan. And based on my reading of that title, any of these plans could fit under that title. And in fact, Ms. Drummond's idea of perhaps a different plan could also fit under that title. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Madam Chair. That's all.
Ms. Drummond.
Thank you, Madam Chair. If that's the case, then I won't introduce number 112 that contains the words which districts are the single-member districts. Is that the understanding? Because I do not want to miss the public hearing if I don't do that now. Otherwise, I would ask permission of the clerk to simply create 2012-112, and I can read you the text and then hand it to you, as I have it written here.
Through the chair, Assemblymember Drummond, yes, the title in 108 will encompass your proposed three single-member district concept.
Okay, thank
and any other district changes that might be proposed. That's the way the reason I wrote that title that way was for that purpose, so it would be completely flexible.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Wheeler. I will take your word for it, and when I bring forward an S-version map, I will trust that 108 will cover it. Thank you, sir.
Okay, we also have laid on the table two items. Yes?
A question of the last item was laid on the table. If there is an additional map, I think we do have a number of maps exhibited on the website for public access and in the lobby here. It's helpful if that information comes. I don't know if the maker of the last motion has a map available, but the sooner that's distributed to the full assembly, the better. Thank you.
Thank you. There are also three other items that were laid on the table this evening. One is we're calling it 9D1A, and it's a Assembly Memorandum 623-212A, approval of participant by the municipality in litigation related to the Port of Anchorage Intermodal Expansion Project and amending the existing contract with outside counsel Seyfarth Shaw LLC for that purpose. We have a second item, 9D1B, and this is also an Assembly Information Memorandum, number 97, 2012, and it's subject AM 623, 2012A, approval of a participation by municipality in litigation related to the Port of Anchorage Intermodal Expansion Project and amending the existing contract with outside counsel, Seyfarth Shaw LLC, for that purpose. And then the last one, which the mayor spoke to, was 13A2, and it's an Assembly Information Memorandum number 98, 2012, and its subject is an AO 2012-97, an ordinance authorizing disposal of real property known as the John Thomas Building and legally described as lots 9, 10, 11A, Block 37B, East Addition subdivision located at 325 East 3rd Avenue. I would entertain a motion as far as the consent agenda.
Move to approve.
Second.
Ms. Drummond?
Madam Chair, is there an addendum agenda that contains the list of all these items?
No.
No, they were all laid on the table. Yes, could that motion be to incorporate? Or could we also have a motion to incorporate?
Incorporate the addendum agenda, Madam Chair.
Second? Thank you. Any objection?
You might ask Ernie if he has an objection.
Mr. Hall?
No objection.
Okay, I have Ms. Drummond still in the queue. Are you?
No.
Okay,
Thank you.
Ms. Gray-Jackson?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a housekeeping issue, I think, on the ordinances. Shouldn't we be using the term reapportionment or whatever form of that word instead of redistricting based on our code? Thank you, Madam Chair.
What did she?
In the titles,
Madam Chair?
Yes.
You want a motion on the consent agenda, ma'am, with the amended agenda, so we've got the thing in front of us, and then you can go through and ask members what they want.
Right. We've approved the consent agenda. We've incorporated
Okay.
the laid on the tables, and I was about to ask if anybody had any items to pull.
I'm going to bring forward then the consent agenda, and then if we get a second, you can then, because I don't think we've done that yet. We need to do it, Jennifer.
Okay.
Debbie, why don't you just second it, and then she'll just pull them.
Actually, I think Ms. Oceana did that previously, but
I did, but
Okay.
my point was Ms. Gray-Jackson asked a question of legal about the title appropriateness that needs to be answered, I think.
thank you, Ms. Osiander.
Through the chair, Ms. Gray-Jackson, I have to admit that I cheated. I mimicked ordinances that have been used by prior assemblies in the 1980s and 90s, and the term that's been used is redistricting. The Assembly declared itself malapportioned in July, and now it's time to redraw the district line, so we use the term redistricting.
Thank you. Right.
is that all right, Ms. Gray-Jackson?
Well, Mr. Wheeler is our attorney, but, the term is reapportionment, but I'm going to move on. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Okay, starting with Mr. Birch, do you have any items you'd like to pull?
No items, thank you.
Mr. Flynn?
Item 9, Delta 1, please. The A version.
Ms. Osiander?
Considering that's the only item there, I think we're safe. Nothing else?
Well, we have the laid on the tables that we've incorporated. Mr. Trombley?
No items.
Mr. Starr? Mr. Hall?
No items.
Ms. Gray-Jackson?
No, thank you, Madam Chair.
Mr. Honeman?
I was going to pull 91, but it's been pulled. Thank you.
Mr. Trainee?
There's no use having the discussion. There's nothing left, ma'am. Thank you.
And Ms. Drummond?
Everything's been pulled that I would want to pull.
Okay, Mr. Flynn?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I apologize for stealing everyone else's thunder.
Madam Chair, you might want to have a vote on
Yes, could we have a vote as far as the remainder of the consent agenda? Or
Anybody opposed to it?
anybody oppose? Mr. Hall?
No, Ernie.
No, it's yes.
Consent agenda was approved, Madam.
Right, consent agenda is approved. Mr. Flynn?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll move acceptance of item 9, Delta 1, version A.
Second?
Any discussion?
If I may, Madam Chair. First off, thank you to the administration for this revised version. I think the authorization of $250,000 is more appropriate than the initially proposed $2 million. My only question is, at what point do you anticipate us receiving, whether in executive session or otherwise, an update from outside counsel as to the progress that they're making in the claims process?
Through the chair, Mr. Flynn, end of November.
Okay. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Mr. Hahnemann.
Is that for me? Thank you. Reading with interest the memorandum that came down this afternoon referenced the MARAD's release indications while MARAD's decision to release information was inconsistent with the terms and spirit of their own non-disclosure agreement. Given that, Mr. Mayor, and to the administration and legal, is there anything binding us from putting out more information in advance of the November 6th election for this bond that has about $50 million or more to residents? I mean, I don't buy the fact that, no matter which design we go with, we're going to need the money. I think we need a little more than that. I think given the fact that there's information out there now that says that this open cell design is a poor design, and the front page of the newspaper, and people are now commenting on it, and I just think that we need to throw out there, we don't have concrete information as far as financial numbers to give. Everything would be what I would call a swag, a scientific wild-ass guess. But if you can at least get us in a ballpark with, if we go with regular traditional pilings, this is what we think it'll be. If we have to redesign the sheet pile design, this is what it'll be. Something that we can give to our voters that are coming up, rather than setting on a confidentiality agreement that's obviously been breached according to the memo.
Thank you, Mr. Honeman, through the chair. I can generally answer your first part of the question, which was if you go with a traditional pile design or continue with this design, you're talking over $300 or $400 million regardless. So the $50 million bond is necessary no matter what design goes forward. I just can absolutely guarantee you that. We've studied port designs and construction all over the world, all different techniques, as part of our preparation going forward with this, and I can guarantee you it's hundreds of millions of dollars regardless of design. The second thing is MARAD really just kind of nipped at the confidentiality agreement, which is upsetting to us because we've held fast to our word when we signed on the dotted line, and the fact that they kind of gave a little hint of what the study might contain, again, something we probably wouldn't have done, but keep in mind the document is a 2,200-page document. It's being studied in great detail, so we're just not prepared to release any more information at this time. When we sign a confidentiality agreement, we mean it. And so again, I can't control what they do, but we take our word very seriously, and on November 9th, you'll get the briefing that really gives you that high-level study of what they think has been the case to date, and from that point on, Geotechnical Committee will review it, and in December it'll be fully released.
So would it be fair then to the request I had made, and I was considering putting a resolution of this body to urge the administration or direct the administration to put something out there, would it be fair to say that either project, whichever way to complete this port project, at whatever it looks like, is going to be in excess of $300 million or $400 million, or something that we can give to our constituents and our residents before they in advance of the vote?
Yeah, you have that information now, sir. Feel free to share.
So $300 million?
At least.
No matter which direction?
Yeah, we went to the state of Alaska saying that we needed $350 million. We haven't changed what we've said since that date, and there really is a minimum going forward. So feel free to share that number.
Okay.
You're fine? Okay. We had a motion. Vote. I need to vote. Do I see any objections? Mr. Hall? Thank you. That item passes. It is 20 of 6, and we can't do any public hearings until 6, so we'll take a 20-minute supper break. Thank you.
She's from New England. She talked about it.
Now you may go.
Good evening. We are now on item 13A, which is continued public hearing as far as ordinance 2012-97, an ordinance authorizing disposal of real property known as the John Thomas Building, legally described as lots 9, 10, 11A, block 37B, East Addition subdivision located. Thank you. Public hearing is open. Anybody wishing to speak? Anyone at all?
Good evening, and thank you for this opportunity. A great number of people, I'm Cal Williams, a long citizen in this community, 1965, I think. I was there when they dedicated the John Thomas Building. A great number of people have talked about the use of the building, the agencies that are there, the services that they provide, and the dollars that they save the community. So, rather than being redundant, I'd like to talk about what only one of the people talked about, John Thomas himself, the person for whom the building was named. We in this community have seen great change, certainly I have, from 65 to now. Buildings have been torn up, history has been moved on, things that did once stand and show who we were have been washed away without great thought for the sociological impact. Wanda Park, a housing area, was torn down at the corner of 5th and F Street. It was at one time described as the largest native village in the state because it was affordable housing and a great number of native people lived there. The buildings were torn down, the people were scattered to the wind, lost the opportunity to share and work out and support each other. Had those people been Caribou, someone would have said you can't destroy that area because of the core calving area, that there is a sociological need. Same thing with the John Thomas Building. Those agencies that are in there serve and cross-pollinate and share information. Monday I was there, and at the ripe old age of whatever, I finally learned how to carve by going and working with the people there and created a piece of art. Something tangible. All my life I have worked with words, I've worked with documents, and here I now have something that will be tangible long after I'm gone. That's what the John Thomas Building was to represent. A life, a legacy that is there long after the man himself was gone, the services that he provided. John Thomas, along with Blanche McSmith, John Parks, those people gave their lives creating a situation here that we take for granted. I go into the schools and I talk during African American history, and I don't talk about George Washington Carver or Martin Luther King. I try and give these youth some feeling that local people have done significant things and that they too can do significant things. And when I can point to buildings and structures and businesses that existed when I was here that no longer exist, when people die and their youth come in and throw all of their belongings and clippings and program booklets into the dumpster, history is being lost. That's what's happening when we destroy so willy-nilly those things that Anchorage stand for. And again, if we want to talk about the services that we provide for the least among us, those of us who consider ourselves to be Christian, that should resonate loudly with us, because the people that they serve are indeed the most needy. That's the one and only opportunity that we have. On the third floor in that building is a conference table that was designed and put there, built by a native man. It's built in the shape of a boat. It's about cooperation. Hunters go out and work together. That's what the people in the John Thomas Building are doing, working together to save money for this community and do a good service. And I see my time is up.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Hahnemann.
Cal Williams, thanks for bringing up the information about Mr. Thomas, because I've heard anecdotal stories here and there, but saying that you were there when the building was dedicated, that you were, and sharing some of that information, I think is very hugely important. Do you get the sense, I know that you've a member participate in that building itself and a number of different organizations, do you get the sense that if the opportunity were available, that members of the occupants of the building now might be interested in pursuing the purchase of the building, running it for themselves?
I've heard them discuss that, and, hopefully they can find the resources to do such a thing. It's a lofty idea, but they indeed will need grants, et cetera, and time from this body to make that happen. That's a dream that would be wonderful, for sure.
Thank you.
Thank you. There appears to be no other questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Ray Clements, and I have served for 9 years as the Executive Director of Older Persons Action Group and as editor of the Senior Voice newspaper. I've had a lot of concern about the potential sale of this building for one particular reason, because it's my understanding that the building was both purchased and renovated with covenants attached to the grants that were awarded for the construction and the remodeling of the building. And those covenants pertain to the building being used by nonprofit organizations to help improve the quality of life for low-income residents of our city. Older Persons Action Group was the first nonprofit to occupy the building and has ever since for nearly 40 years. I'm real concerned that now that the municipality may put this building up for bid, for sale, and no doubt those in the for-profit sector may purchase the building or demolish it and build a new building in its place on that property. So I'm concerned that the intent that was written in writing for the covenants of the building may be lost. And I'm deeply concerned about that because I think the record will show the nonprofits who have occupied the building for 40 years have diligently worked on behalf of low-income residents of our city. Thank you for your time and attention.
Mr. Hahnemann?
Sir, thank you for advocating for OPEG and of course, for the John Thomas Building, and thank you for your service to the community, because it's, again, I think Mr. Williams pointed out, there's a very finite number of people that live in Anchorage, and we're an aging population even as we sit here today, and I know one day we'll look forward to maybe using services that are located in that facility as well. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. There appears to be no other questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you, too.
Is there anybody else who wishes to testify?
Yeah, I got a question. My name is Dale, D-A-L-E-L, last name Reeves, R-E-E-V-E-S. And there's a gentleman that would like to speak, but he's having a bad night. And is it possible that he can be on the speaker? He's got polio and he's having a bad night, but he's a member of Mabel T, has been in the city for many, many, many years. And I was wondering if, like, you can call him, he's ready to talk, to speak, and put him on the speakerphone. Is that possible? I noticed that before, when you guys were talking with some of your assembly members, they were able to...
Excuse me, let me just ask the clerk. Thank you. We're going to check with IT, but we're not sure if we have that capability. We have a line for assembly members to call in, but I don't know if we have that for public hearings. While we're waiting, could you please sit down and we'll see if there's anybody else who wishes to testify on this Anyone else wishing to testify? And for the record, could you please spell your name?
Leonard Kelly, Kelley, and I'm a member of the Team Alaska, and I have my co-mayor, and I know you've got yours, but here it's Team Anchorage. The long and the short of it, I'm the president of the Older Persons Action Group right now, and hopefully I can be succinct and quick with what I have to say. The CDBG money is meant for poor people, disadvantaged people, older people. I first came in touch with this CDBG money when I was a member of the Alaska Museum of Natural History in Eagle River. We were asked to move to Mountain View if they'd give us a building in there with CDBG money. They gave us the building where it's the museum, the Maritime building in there, right next to Credit Union 1. The long and short of it, we moved down there. The Cook Inlet folks have been building houses around there. The credit union is an added financial institution, makes a whole community. There's new office buildings. It's changed for the better because of CDBG money. But the museum owns that building. Now, let's just go to the John Thomas building. I've only been connected with that for a couple years, and actually, I didn't know the good work Mabel Cave really did until I became associated with that organization. But that money, from what I've been able to find, came from HUD to the Older Persons Action Group to improve that building, the John Thomas building, and that was done. And the only condition was keep it as a nonprofit for nonprofits. And over all these years, the municipality has made in-kind contribution in the way of rent. That's what they've done. And these organizations have been able to offer programs, a lot more programs than they could because of the low rent. So, a couple weeks ago, the new chief of staff, Dan Kendall, and some other administration folks came over and talked to us. And the long and short of it is some of what we didn't want to hear. I know, but the rest of it is we were given a chance to come up with some options, and that's where we are right now. I finally got the cost estimate. It was brought before you last week, and we got very detailed records regarding some of the cost. And so I was able to work since the last doggone assembly meeting on this little option package that you have here. I called it the Older Persons Action Group. It's addressed to you. And of course, the one option is approve the sale of the building, and then we deal with the relocation cost and what happens to the CDBG money. The one that I hope that everybody takes is do nothing. The municipality of Anchorage has been the steward of this building for these nonprofits for the last bunch of years. They can continue doing that. Raise the rent. Put additional people in there in the way of tenants.
Excuse me, your time might be up, but Mr. Hahnemann has a question.
All right, and the third one is the money. We can possibly buy it with
Excuse me, could you let Mr. Hahnemann ask the question?
That was what I was going to ask, if you could sum up with a third option. I'm really interested in that, if you come up with if you can briefly describe.
Well, that's why I tried to have it sent over to you directly. I knew I'd have problems reading it because I misplaced my glasses someplace. But anyways, the long and short of it is I ran through the figures. It looks like we could cover the place at 60 cents a square foot. 75 cents a square foot would cover, give us a little bit more of a leeway on it. But we need a transition time, and we need some help to make this thing work. And help from the point of view of putting together some systems to operate it. We're hoping over a period of a couple of years, basically 2 years, we can take the whole thing on ourselves and fill it up with nonprofits. So, with that said, do you have, I did go before the the mayor's and assembly's group last week and asked them for support, and they acknowledge the need of these nonprofits in Anchorage.
Okay, thank you very much.
All right.
Anybody else wish to testify?
Hello, my name's Tim Manwaring, and I'm here.
And could you please spell your last name?
Manwaring, and I'm here to speak this evening on behalf of the Mabry T. Cavalier Senior Services. And I just wanted to do a couple things. First of all, I wanted to say something to the mayor. Mr. Mayor, I just wanted to let you know that I'm a big supporter of yours, and in most cases, when I don't agree with you, I'll give you the benefit of the doubt. But in this particular case, I'd like to see us do a little something different with the John Thomas Building. I happen to be in the board of directors with Maple T. Cavalier, and I'm a past operations manager for the Older Alaskans program with the Salvation Army. And prior to that, I've been a volunteer in senior services and senior centers since the early 1980s, both in Alaska and outside. And what I wanted to speak with to you about this evening was a little bit of, and some of this is repetition, but I wanted to just tell you a little brief history of senior services and the organizations in our community, such as Maple T. They include Maple T. Cavalier Senior Services, which at one time was called Maple T. Cavalier Senior Center, the Alaska Senior Activity Center, the Older Alaskans Action Group, and the Older Alaskans Program, Meals on Wheels, Salvation Army. All these organizations spring forth from the Older Alaskans Act in 1970s, and they're still all in existence in our community today, having adapted over time to the changing needs of our communities. They continue to meet a wide range of needs throughout our city, and in the most part, they don't duplicate services. The Older Alaskans program is now part of the Salvation Army Social Services, and they deliver meals to nearly 500 homebound seniors every day. The Anchorage Senior Center provides a gathering place for a large membership for active seniors, and has changed its name to the Anchorage Senior Activity Center to better reflect its intent. The Older Alaskans Group is a primary provider of senior-focused information for older people statewide. In the Maple T. Cavalier Senior Services, at Maple T. Cavalier Services, we provide safety net programs and services to low-income, at-risk seniors. And I guess what I wanted to get across to you tonight was the fact that Maple T. Cavalier and most of the other organizations don't duplicate services. They each offer services that are unique to our community, senior citizens, and we would ask that you guys continue to support them. If at not the John Thomas Building, then hopefully somewhere else in our community. And once again, I just ask you to take this consideration very seriously. And thank you.
Mr. Starr?
Thanks for testifying. Have you seen the memo that was dated today from the mayor about that very offer about relocating the Maple T staff as
I have
well
not.
as
I have not.
the OPAG? Yeah, and it was delivered to us this afternoon. And basically, it summarizes here that it's possible to co-locate the staff and the Older Persons Action Group at a DHSS building to have that synergy connect. So I think the mayor stepped up and said, we found you a place. Is that attractive to you in that, or what?
I would guess, I mean, it sounds attractive, but I haven't seen it. And you know, I would say that any kind of offers like that would certainly be appreciated and hopefully well received, but I haven't had a chance to see it.
It looks like it's a, you know, obviously he's put in front of us, as well as he talks about the transportation program moving across the street to the senior center office and being based out of there, which does have some benefits for that program. There's no transportation services at the Anchorage Senior Center now, so I thought that was another good support for that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else wishing to testify? Sir, we are waiting to see if we can technically do this. And
Madam Chair?
Yes?
Can you patch something together with a cell phone and a microphone here?
That's what we're...
No, I mean, this gentleman here, do you have can you...
Yes.
Can you call this person on a cell phone?
He's got a landline.
Just have him call you and put it up next to the microphone. We'll try that, huh?
Okay, I was going to say something like that, if it worked.
I'm game. If it's okay with the chair. I just haven't tried it before, but, what the heck. Yeah, give him a call, and if it's acceptable to the body.
Actually,
there's a legal
right.
prohibition.
Could we have it at ease for just 2 minutes, please? Mr. Reeves, could you please come up here?
Hello, Saul.
On this. This is an unusual case, and it's not one that we would probably go down lightly as far as having folks call in for a hearing. A public hearing usually has to be in person, but this person is disabled, and so we're trying to make some special considerations. Thank you. I'm afraid we've had technical difficulties. It's not going to work. And maybe you could ask your friend if he would send us all an email so we have it. If he has access to a computer, that will be the best thing.
Okay.
Okay? Thank you. Anybody else wishing to testify? Anyone at all? This public hearing is closed.
Excuse me.
Yes.
May I?
Yes.
Sorry about that. I couldn't get up. I appreciate your patience. Thank you for allowing me to speak this evening. Mr. Mayor, good evening, Assembly. My name is Wanda Green, and I'm president of the NAACP here in Anchorage. And for the past few weeks, I've been coming here and listening to public testimony in regards to the sale of the John Thomas Building. I guess I agree with just about everything that everybody has said here when they get up to testify about the importance of the John Thomas Building, but not just the building itself, but the nonprofit organizations that are in that building. I was pleased to hear that perhaps there is a memorandum or there is an amendment to maybe relocate a couple of the nonprofit organizations there. And that is good because from what I can see as the president of the NAACP, I go to that building and I go to meetings, And I'm always seeing elderly people there. I'm seeing people in the community that need those resources. I see that they offer classes. I see that they give people something to do. I see that it is a social gathering, which is something that is definitely important in this community. I think when this subject first came up about the sale of the John Thomas Building, I think a lot of people might have misunderstood that we were concerned about our organizations being misplaced. I just want to correct anybody who thinks that. It was, I think that I can speak for myself and everybody else in the building. We weren't concerned so much about our organizations per se, but about the community that we serve. I think you heard a young lady get up here a couple of weeks ago by the name of Ashley Gaines, 22 years old, goes to the University of Alaska. And the NAACP is also in that building. And many of you may think that we are just a civil rights organization. That is true. That is primarily what we do. But what she spoke about is that we do have youth groups that we sponsor. In back of me, you see a whole bunch of kids from the Anchorage Youth Court. And of course, what they do is they give kids resources, they teach kids, maybe get them off the street, give them other options than negative options. We have youth groups that do the same thing. It is free of charge. Everybody at the NAACP, we're not paid. It's just paid, not paid, but we're paid in helping others in the community. We too are concerned about those youth groups if we are displaced, and also the other things that we offer people. There are people who can't afford to go to an attorney. We're not attorneys, but we do mediate, and we do help people with jobs. We do have help people who are in a corner and they have nowhere to go. So as you consider selling the John Thomas Building, I just hope you consider that that the services that the nonprofit organizations offer there. And I realize that the municipality supplements part of the payment of that, and we are truly grateful. But I truly believe that the services that we offer is much more than about $80,000 a year than what you supplement to the nonprofit organizations. Thank you.
Thank you. There appears to be no questions. There's a motion on the floor. Is there any discussion?
I thought we still had, is the public hearing closed?
Yes.
I move to postpone this indefinitely.
Point of order, I think we have a motion.
We have a motion on the, I allowed her to come in after we closed the public hearing.
I didn't hear it.
Mr. Birch and Ms. Osiander.
Which one, Chris, did you move?
What? 97?
Be 97 is the one that's posted.
Okay.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. I'll start the discussion. We did put forth in front of the Assembly today a memorandum that describes some of the things that we're willing to provide to help transition if the Assembly does decide to proceed with selling the building. We understand that it can be disruptive to have to move in any situation, and in this particular case, the nonprofits that are in the building. And just as a quick side note, there are hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of nonprofits in town providing outstanding service that would love to have the opportunity to have a 25 cents a square foot rent, and we just cannot figure out a way to fairly use that municipal asset in a fair and equitable manner. I mean, if you rotated tenants, you'd have people moving every year or so, and that's just as disruptive. So it really came to the conclusion, and particularly based on the Assembly's guidance over the last few years, to basically sell real estate services and Heritage Land Bank assets that weren't directly available to municipal offices. So in looking at this, we want to be of assistance. We've identified $30,000 in our community grant fund that is available, unspent at the end of the year, that we can divide amongst the various nonprofits. Our community work service program, we do have folks who will help relocate through, through the labor of moving offices and equipment and supplies. We do want to, of course, pursue the option that was discussed briefly. Our Director of Health and Human Services, Janet Vittmeyer, had indicated that, we provide senior services at the DHS building. We have a senior services program, and it may well be that in combination with OPAG and Mabel T. Caverly that we can actually be more efficient delivering those services if there was a co-location possibility, and so we want to pursue that as well. There was talk about in your memorandum you'll see other possibilities as well, including selling the building to the tenants if that proved to be viable. This has been discussed over the years with the tenants. I know on at least 2 occasions over the last several years that our Real Estate Services Department has provided the information necessary, but unfortunately so far the tenants have not been able to consummate a proposed sale. So in proceeding forward, again, the administration is more than willing to work by providing funds, providing labor. And then I spoke with Dennis McMillan of the Foraker Group at length today, and he said that they would assist any and all nonprofits in the building in finding new space and helping to put together, any proposals for purchase. He said they're there to serve, and so he's got the commitment. He said that since they met several weeks ago, that none of them have contacted him yet. So he's anxious to help, but so far he's not received a response to his offer to help. So we urge the Assembly to move forward this with the commitment. They will work very, very hard with the tenants. We're also willing. I think the contract calls for a 90-day notice period. We're willing to extend that to 180 days. I didn't put that in the memo. I forgot. I apologize for that. But we're certainly willing to. That's 6 months worth of notice, and it gives plenty of time and adequate notice to find adequate space for the services.
Thank you. Mr. Hahnemann.
I move to postpone this indefinitely.
Mr. Trainee.
Mr. Mayor, quick question. If we turn 13A down, what's going to be the position of the administration relative to us if somebody decides not to sell this building? Do you guys have contingency plans for what you guys plan to do?
If somebody decides not to sell the building, we'll have to look at other options. Certainly 13A would not be applicable at that time because it speaks to what we would do if we did sell the building.
Okay. But you have contingency plans if somebody turns it down to come back to us and address it in a different manner, Mr. Mayor?
I think we would probably have to go sharpen our pencils and do just that, sir.
Thank you, sir.
And just in response to that, just as you know, this is also included in revenues for the budget, so it would have to be accompanied by appropriate cuts.
I need a ruling from our attorneys. There is a motion on the floor for this ordinance, and I received another motion and a second to postpone it indefinitely. Do I need to act on the second motion, or do we go to the first motion, since there's already a motion on the floor?
Madam Chair, we're going to have to hit the books here for a second.
Madam Chair, if I could, with indulgence of the Chair, I'd like to speak to my motion to postpone while they're looking.
Okay, you can speak while we're getting.
Okay. I believe that under Robert's rules it does take precedence. However, the reason I say is, and I appreciate the administration bringing forth the laid on the table memorandum, particularly the last paragraph where they're identifying that they're willing to sell the building to the nonprofits or consortium of nonprofits. I believe that's what I'd heard in the work session and in the testimony I've heard throughout, and some conversations and emails that we've received from members representing the different organizations in the building. I readily identify and acknowledge that the rent that's going on currently right now does not meet obligations, the payments in entirety. I recognize that. I also recognize, as has been testified to, the importance of the significance of this building, in particular to nonprofits, and significantly the Older Persons Action Group, Mabel T. Cavalry, NAACP, all the tenants that are in there currently. I recognize there are other nonprofits that are in this community as well. I believe it's our responsibility, the municipality, to look at municipal holdings and as the assembly body to determine the best use of its of its holdings. And I believe this was determined many years ago, many decades ago, to be the best use of this property. Recognizing that this municipality and its taxpayers may not be able to sustain, for the future, the increasing cost, that I believe we should be working and giving, much like we do a 6-year fiscal strategic plan for our own budgets, we should be able to assist and willing to assist these nonprofit groups and a consortium, therefore, to set forth a strategic plan going forward with a date certain to perhaps purchase this building. And I know that we've been the recipients of the municipality from federal properties and state properties, either given for no cost or for $1 or for some low dollar amount. And the significance being that once that transfer is done, that the municipality and its taxpayers are no longer on the hook for the financial obligations of the running of that building. So I think that the best use of this building is its intended use and its current use, and I believe we should not sell the building at this time. If we're going to be sharpening our pencils, that we should be doing it with the intent and spirit of trying to let the nonprofit consortium purchase the building for its continued use as currently being used.
Thank you. Mr. Wheeler?
Madam Chair, the motion to postpone indefinitely takes precedent over the main motion and should be dealt with prior to the vote on the main motion.
Thank you. Mr. Birch, is this on the current motion?
It is. I speak in opposition to the motion to postpone indefinitely. We've had this ordinance in front of us for at least 2 public hearings. We've heard discussion on this. It's been here that we've had to deliberate on it for over a month now. We have a lot of people in the audience here tonight to talk about our budget. This is the sale of this, and I would also add that the sale of this building, certainly doesn't preclude a bid or, as suggested, some sort of opportunity for a nonprofit organization to step in and purchase it. So that's certainly doesn't preclude that, but we don't need to be in the business of managing this building, and I'd urge a no vote on postponement indefinite. Thank you.
Ms. Gray Jackson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Mayor, you mentioned that proceeds from the sale of this building is part of the 2013 budget. Is that correct? And what is that amount, Mr. Mayor?
It's about $300,000.
Thank you. The one thing that I noticed, though, in the summary of economic effects for revenue source, I don't see that dollar amount in the FY13 line item at all. I see revenue source as 0. So it is possible that this may not be anticipated to help fund the 2013 budget. Am I correct, Mr. Mayor?
Well, if you look at the summary of economic effects in the text where it says public sector economic effects, it mentions that the community development block grant will receive 79% of the appraised value, and at least 21% of the sale proceeds will be deposited into the area-wide general fund. And until you actually have the bids and get the exact price that you receive for the building, it's hard to put an exact number, but it does speak to it in the SE.
Right. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. But my point is, it doesn't look like it is a revenue source for the 2013 budget, because you really have no idea how quickly this building is going to be sold. And as we all know, purchasing real property takes some time, and I don't think that that's an issue. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Yeah, it is in the budget document, Ms. Gray Jackson.
Mr. Trombley.
Mr. Mayor, in regards to the proceeds being used to fund 2013, if in fact this didn't pass tonight, do you have any idea or what would be targeted for additional cuts to the budget without the roughly $300,000 or estimated?
That's a great question, Mr. Trombley. I would hate to say on the fly here just what exactly. We would have to go back and look at some of the things that maybe we added back in the B budget. Some of the add-ins would be the first to be considered because they were the ones, off the list from the A budget. So,
but at the end of the day, we would have to cut services somewhere.
Yes, indeed.
Okay, thank you.
Seeing no other comments, we'll vote on the motion to postpone indefinitely.
No.
Oh, sorry, I knew time with machine here. Okay, we have the original motion on the floor. That motion failed 6-5. We now have the original motion on the floor. Mr. Hahnemann.
Okay, so I see how that's going. I stand by my original comments of the highest and best use of that property being where it's at currently. I guess my comments to the body is as a reminder that we just freed up nearly $8.2 million in one-time expenditures that haven't been directed by this body where that goes, if there's concern about where we could find some funding. We also see in our summary of what looks to be about a $5.7 million surplus before the end of the year. So that's, I'm no mathematician, but I'm thinking that's close to about $14 million. We're not looking at a lot of dollars that are uncommitted. We have, I don't know, Ms. Mahoney, how much money do we have in our unrestricted fund balance that's available?
The Chair, we don't calculate our 2012 year-end fund balance until first quarter.
So what's in the fund balance that's unrestricted currently if we were to have to go to fund balance to pay for anything currently?
Give me a minute. I have a document here.
Thank you. My point is that, I suspect that using the, I know Mr. Starr and I had some consternation over what we're going to do with, I know that he wanted to, and I firmly believe with him that we would refund some of the payments back to the taxpayers that result in taxpayer savings. We've decided not to do that as a body last meeting, so we haven't designated where that funding is going at this particular moment in time, and there's no rush to get these folks out of the building, and we find $30,000 all of a sudden now, and we can authorize all sorts of movement. We can do that next year or the year later. We get a strategic plan, and I caution and urge this body that we put a strategic plan and help coddle something together with the administration, put it in a resolution or even an ordinance form, and put a date certain to it, much like we do with the boards and commissions. Sunset it. Put it in a 2-year period and work it through. And then if they don't want to purchase the building at that time, it goes to sale at then to the public.
Ms. Alsander.
When this originally came to us, my concern was the impact on the existing tenants and the potential tie-in with the CDBG money. If you remember, the worksheet that we got at the work session said that we would be asking a minimum bid of $1,650,000 for the building, but because of the previous ties with the CDBG funding, that would be broken down with about $1.3 million available to the CBDG and $345,500 available to the general fund. It states in this memo that we got. As I said, my initial concern was the impact to the existing nonprofits who do very important work for our city. So I'm very appreciative of this memo that you just prepared, Mr. Mayor, that talked about transition. And I'm very interested in the work that Mr. Kelly presented about some options initially on moving forward for purchasing. I think my primary bottom line in this is how do you treat everybody fairly? And I guarantee you there are nonprofits who are desperate to get in that building. And it appears that folks are in there just because historically they ask first, and I don't know if that's the right way to go. So I think a system where everybody is evaluated on some kind of equivalent basis is fair. I also, frankly, am concerned about funding for youth court and fire trucks in Eagle River and Campfire, and I'm looking at all that in one big picture, folks, and no matter how I look at it, there's got to be some pain here to get what I think I need for the rest of the community. So I think I'm going to be a yes on it. Thank you.
Mr. Trainee.
Just by to vote no, because we're kicking the most helpless people to the curb. I was on the Assembly when we moved, under Tom Fink, moved them into that building. I'm going to stay consistent and vote no on this. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Ms. Mahoney.
I would just like to follow up with Mr. Honeman's question, and that is that at the end of 2011, we had $7.7 million unfunded or unreserved fund balance. However, that was used and appropriated to fund the 2012 budget. So at this point, we do not know what our unreserved fund balance would be.
Ms. Drummond.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I find it interesting that the mayor proposes to take the revenues from this building and use them to help build the budget for next year. I have to ask, what other buildings is he looking to shed of municipal ownership in order to continue to fund the budget in out years?
Yeah.
That's a rhetorical question, Mr. Mayor. You don't have to answer it.
No, I don't mind answering. Thank you, Ms. Drummond. We just consummated sale yesterday of the National Guard Armory on Spenard Road to TDX Corporation for $4.5 million. Was that the amount, Mr. Mayor? So, again, that money goes into the HLB fund, but still, we have taken the Assembly's directive that Mr. Trainee and others made very clear to us when we were working on the HLB plan last year that we are looking to find those opportunities, whether it's property or whether it's buildings, to, if they're not directly related to municipal services, to get them into the private sector hands. And again, I think as Mr. Birch mentioned, nothing precludes a private sector owner from offering space to these tenants or from the tenants putting in a bid as well.
Mr. Trainee, this...
Mr. Mayor, was that a sole source bid on the National Guard Armory at, what, 20%?
Actually, this is off topic. We can do that.
You have a time, Mr. Mayor. I just want to make sure we got...
It was a competitive bid.
What, sir?
It was a competitive bid. That's how we dispose of our property.
I know, but there's also other ways to do it. So do we end up with a bid matching what we wanted on that one?
It exceeds what we asked.
Right, yeah, this is off topic. I don't see anybody else in the queue. Please vote.
Mr. Hall?
Yes.
Okay, I would like to open the second hearing, public hearing for, I'm sorry, I keep forgetting to state the vote is 6-5. That passes. I'd like to open the public hearing, and I would entertain a motion.
Could we combine the public hearings on 14A, 14B, 14C, 14D, 14E, 14F, and 14G, I guess, and 14H, all of them?
Okay, and I would like to ask a favor of the public. We have a man, Mr. Bustamante, who has some transportation issues, and we promised that he could go first. Mr. Bustamante, are you here? Is there any objections?
No objection, but just after him, man, could we have KYC? Because they've got open tomorrow. I'll make that appreciated. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Mr. Bustamante? And maybe someone might help you with the mic, and please spell your last name.
Okay. Yeah. It's Johnny, Johnnnie, Bustamante, Bustamante. And I apologize to the mayor and the assembly because I broke the golden rule at APU Cred School. Turn off your cell phone before you come to class. I apologize. I'm a little concerned about your transportation plan. I understand that you want to eliminate Sunday bus service and anchor ride bus service. That's what's posted on the bus?
Yes.
Is that not right?
I think what you're looking at, there are two budgets.
Yes.
There's an A budget and there's a B budget. And the Assembly's intent is to work from the B budget. And there are no cuts to public transportation in the B budget.
Okay. I thought we were talking about the budget, which is both A and B.
Right. And so if you would like to voice your opinion and promote or support the B budget, then we would be very interested in that. But
Well, with that said, you're planning to increase the fares again under both A and B.
that is correct.
You just had a fare increase. I know, because I spoke then too. I think you fellas kind of forget that we are on a fixed budget. Social Security, cost of living allowance in 2009, 0. In 2010, it was 0. In 2011, it went up to 3.6%. In 2012, it went up only 1.7%. Compare that to the Anchorage inflation rate in 2009, which was 1.2%. At that time, we got no COLA increase. In 2010, we got no COLA increase, and the inflation rate was 1.8. In 2011, we got a COLA of 3.6. However, the inflation rate went up to 3.2. In 2012, again, the COLA was 1.7, and the Anchorage inflation rate was 1.3%. This is kind of a losing battle. We don't know what the outcome is, what the future may hold. We're talking about major federal and state budget cuts. We're all waiting for the election, but it'll be a severe strain on everybody's budget on fixed income. And with that,
Thank you very much for coming out. There appears to be no questions. Thank you. I would like to indulge those standing behind the podium one more time to allow, there's some students who are here that have come to testify. Mr. Trainee, do you?
Ma'am, if we could have one or two of the kids come forward and then all the rest of them stand wearing the blue shirts, that'll drive the message through to the assembly. I don't want to take the time from the adults here, but these kids have class tomorrow, ma'am. If we could just hear from a few of them, that would be nice.
If assembly members could hold their questions, there's a lot of people who'd like to talk. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Please state.
My name is Dakota Jones. It's Jones, Jones. Are you guys ready? Okay. Hello, my name is Dakota Jones, and I'm a sophomore at South Anchorage High School. As an extremely active member of Youth Corps, I strongly oppose the proposed budget cuts to the program. This program provides an extremely valuable service to our community, extending benefits to both defendants that go through the program as well as members who are involved with the program. Cutting the funding for the Making a Difference program would be a huge loss to our community. The benefits that the defendants receive are amazing, to say the least. By going through AYC, they learn their lesson and earn a chance to move past their mistakes. Defendants learn through this program that their peers do not approve of their unlawful actions, and if they complete their sentence, the crime is wiped off the record, meaning that if they are asked, have you ever been convicted of a crime on an application of some sort, they can honestly check that box saying no, which obviously serves as a huge benefit for them. This combination of benefits has such a powerful effect on defendants that it helps contribute to our low recidivism rate. On average, just 4% of defendants that go through AYC commit another crime over the following 6 months. It is clear that this program is working, and in the long run, it actually saves both the city and state money. McLaughlin doesn't have to use resources to house those juveniles, and also, due to the low recidivism rate, it saves our police force time and money because there's less crime as a result of the efforts of not just me, but all our volunteers. Volunteers such as myself also receive benefits as well. I can't speak for others, but as a result of this program, my public speaking skills have gotten way better. I feel more confident in myself now, and I've also realized how important it is for me to volunteer in my community. Our home community is a better place as a result of our actions. In conclusion, Anchorage Youth Court is a fantastic program that provides a cornucopia of opportunities for both defendants and volunteers across the Anchorage School District. It actually saves both the cities and the state time and money. I think it's a very short-sighted decision to even consider cutting this program, and hopefully the Assembly as well as the Mayor realizes the benefits that this program gives in both the monetary and the community sense. More money is saved over the long term. What's more important, short-term budget cuts or the community? The obvious answer here is the community. Thank you for allowing me the opportunity to hopefully allow me to provide you with a little more insight into the program. Thank you. Any questions?
Thank you very much for showing there appears to be no questions. Thank you very much.
Hello, my name is Prina Jackson, Jackson. I'm here as one of the many members representing Anchorage Youth Court tonight. I'm a senior at West High School and publicity liaison for the Anchorage Youth Court. I'd like to remind you of the testimonies that you heard last week and about the impact and benefits of the program in the Anchorage community, and to please consider these benefits when making your decision. In the fiscal year ending June 2012, 96% of defendants having gone through the Anchorage Youth Court program indicated they were treated with respect by everyone at Anchorage Youth Court. They understood the court process, and their defense attorney represented them well, and their sentence was fair, and their overall youth court experience was positive. During the same time frame, 98% of Anchorage Youth Court members felt they were treated with respect by everyone in Anchorage Youth Court. They understood the court process, and they are glad they participate in youth court, and their overall Anchorage Youth Court experience was beneficial. Mr. Birch, last week you asked about statistics with regards to the effect Anchorage Youth Court has on the defendant, and here they are. Data was derived from a voluntary exit survey for the Anchorage Youth Court. So 87% of defendants said their community service work site was a positive experience. They talk with their parents more, and they are better prepared for their future. 90% help resolve their conflicts by talking to their peers. 95% said they are better at solving problems and choose their friends more carefully. 97% make more thoughtful decisions regarding their actions, and 98% said they understand that crime has consequences and that it is now important for them to be law-abiding citizens. We believe strongly in what the Anchorage Youth Court program does. We believe in its benefits and how it affects the community in a positive way, the teenage community specifically. So we appreciate you helping us make a difference, and hopefully you do so in the future too. Thank you for listening, and just thank you.
Thank you very much. There appears to be no questions.
Hi, my name is Cijo Smith, SMITH. I'm here representing Anchorage Youth Court, and I'm a junior at Chubiak High School. We've gotten a lot of questions about the impact of AYC upon the defendants, so I'd like to share a few quotes from our exit survey. Various student defendants have said these. Everyone was very respectful, and I felt that they understood what I was going through. I liked how they worked with you and helped you complete your given assignment. I liked the fairness in being treated like a responsible person the best, because it was fair and I'm responsible for my actions. The people involved took the time to go over everything and made sure we fully understood the entire process. I was being sentenced by a board of my peers. I felt I was understood more because of it. We also asked the parents to fill out a survey, and I'd like to share a couple quotes from that as well. One parent said that his peers were representing him, that they cared about his outcome, and that the encouragement they gave him were very beneficial to the defendant. Another parent said that the youth involvement, I believe that in some ways it may have been tougher than a standard court setting, while being fair at the same time. In other words, peer judgment may carry more weight for a teen. Thank you.
Thank you very much. There appears to be no questions.
Members of the Assembly, Mayor Sullivan, good evening. My name is Leif Monnet, M-O-N-N-E-T-T, and I appreciate this opportunity to address you this evening. I'm here tonight to urge you to fully fund the Making a Difference program, and in so doing to provide funding for the Anchorage Youth Court. The last time I stood before you, I urged you to fund the Anchorage Youth Court, and I stood before you as a member of the organization and as the co-chair of the board of directors of that organization. I'm no longer affiliated with Anchorage Youth Court. I'm an alumni. However, I am and always will be a strong supporter of the Anchorage Youth Court, and I'm very happy to speak on behalf of the organization now as an adult and as a voting member of our community. I'll keep my comments brief. The Anchorage Youth Court benefits Anchorage's youth and Anchorage's future. It benefits the youth who, having made a mistake in their lives, come before it willingly to be judged and defended by their peers. They see real consequences for their actions. They learn from their mistakes. They get to see a powerful alternative model for how they can be functioning within our community. Our community. I want to emphasize that concept because the youth involved in the Anchorage Youth Corps are members of our community, and this organization cultivates people who help make our community stronger. These young people, the judges, attorneys, bailiffs, clerks, what have you, are members of our community. They are the future of our community. So too are the youth who come through Anchorage Youth Corps. They're both strengthened by their experience in the program. I know that you want a vibrant Anchorage now and in the future, and an Anchorage with strong young people able and willing to communicate to our community, willing to be our future leaders. Anchorage Youth Corps is a powerful forum for cultivating these leaders and for instilling in young people the habit of giving back to their community, the habit of being involved. Through Anchorage Youth Corps, you're training young people to lead and to volunteer to help others. You're training them to be involved in our basic justice system to help their peers. You're leveraging hundreds of hours of volunteer labor of the students, of the talented members of the board, of the countless others who participate and sacrifice in the Anchorage Youth Corps to help our youth. When you fund the Anchorage Youth Corps, you're strengthening our future community. Please, fund the Making a Difference program. Fund the Anchorage Youth Corps. Thank you.
Mr. Trainee.
Nothing for this gentleman, just for the rest of the body. Thank you guys for indulging the kids. And I've got letters from Clark Middle School. It's about 36 of them. So the kids that wrote the letters, we do have them up in front of us. So thank you very much for driving home the point of why this program is important for the kids and for yourself. Thank you.
Thank you for giving me the opportunity.
Thank you.
Madam Chair?
Yes?
It might be appropriate to have those who in the audience that are wearing blue shirts that would like to express their support for the program to stand up. All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay. Next, and for those that are standing in line, we will get to everybody, and it's always painful to see you waiting, standing up. So if you want to sit down, we will be getting to everybody. Thank you.
Madam Chairman, Mr. Mayor, members of the Assembly, my name is Tom McGrath. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. First, in 2007, then Mayor Begich unilaterally granted free bus service for municipal employees. I understand this is a $38,000 line item that could be reversed and should be. If not, at least put it in code so I don't have to look at it as simple theft from the taxpayers of Anchorage by the municipality. I've been told many times if it isn't in code, it doesn't exist. And several people have said, well, the university provides that for their students. Well, actually, they don't. They charge their students for bus service in their activity fees every year. So the students don't get the free bus rides, but I guess the faculty does. It doesn't make any sense to me. The mayor's done a great job in keeping a lid on municipal spending except in the enterprise services. Some of these activities may need to continue, but most should be sold so that you have more time to spend on good governance. Especially egregious is to those on fixed incomes that are. And if you look at wastewater utility especially, there's about a 10% annual increase. And you just heard the numbers from a gentleman before where senior citizens are getting some years a zero increase. I'm also very concerned about the huge increases scheduled by MLMP. I think that the duplicate administration of 7 rail-built electrical utilities could be rolled into one if the mayor would lead the effort, saving ratepayers millions of dollars a year. Development services, the cemetery, Merrill Field, or businesses in which Anchorage need not be involved. You know my issue on the tax called trash pickup that many citizens don't receive any service for, but they do pay the tax every month. Dumpster owned by private enterprises nationwide and could be privately owned here. And the port, wow, you know, we talk about the port all the time. What we should have is a statewide port authority. We have the Mat-Su port and the Anchorage port 3 miles apart, in some cases providing duplicate services. Just think if you only handled municipal government business rather than running government-owned businesses, you could probably do a better job for your constituents and may even take a few more days off. And lastly, my daughter was a clerk of court in the Anchorage Youth Court in 1992. It was a wonderful experience for her and a good organization, but this is not a core function of Anchorage, but rather a function that should be borne by the state and or other groups. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Flynn.
Tom?
Yes.
When we figure out how to get the Rail Belt Utilities united, you will be the first to know.
Well,
I would love to see it happen. I agree with you.
the mayor's got the budget under control, so he has nothing to do for the next 3 years.
Oh, he's
so.
pretty bored, yeah.
Just kidding.
but it's a legitimate comment. Thank you for bringing it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Gretchen Fauske, F-A-U-S-K-E. I'm the current chair of the Library Advisory Board, and behind me are Brooks Chandler from the Friends of the Library and Joe Murray from the Foundation. I wanted to thank all of you for working off of Budget Option B. We really appreciate that. And I wanted to ask you to consider increasing that budget by $400,000. As you know, the library has experienced some deep cuts over the last few years. We've closed a branch, reduced staff, and reduced hours. Also, you might be interested to know that the library is funded at a lower level now than it was when it first opened in 1986, not accounting for inflation or population increase. The $400,000 increase would allow for more teen education, kickstart the LUSAC renovation, and provide high-speed internet and technology classes. And when I say technology, it's not iPhones and Facebook. It's actually faster internet and educating people on how to use technology. As you know, technology is an essential tool today. People use it for government services, job seeking, applying for jobs, education, connecting to the community, and also fun and entertainment. Anchorage Public Library provides free and easy access to everybody in our community and assists people who need help using that technology. The funding would be a beginning in providing the technology that our community needs. Thank you.
Thank you. There appears to be no questions. Thank you very much.
Good evening. I'm Brooks Chandler, C-H-A-N-D-L-E-R. I'm appearing here on behalf of Friends of the Library. Our nonprofit organization has more than 300 members and consistently raises between $50,000 and $90,000 a year, which is directly donated to the library in support of the public library services, including programming such as the summer reading program. It requires between 1,000 and 2,000 volunteer hours each year to raise this amount of money. So it should come as no surprise that our organization was distressed, and I use that word politely, to learn that someone had actually proposed slashing the existing library budget by more than $700,000 in the coming fiscal year, which would, in effect, wipe out 10 years of our own volunteer efforts raising and contributing money to the library. Simply, some people think that library services can be supported through volunteer efforts. I can tell you, having been in those trenches for a while, that book sales and auctions are simply no way to run a public library system in a community of this size. We can augment, we cannot supplement operational funds directly and make up for cuts of this magnitude. The real question, I think, is if you're going to have a public library system is whether there is a political will on behalf of the elected leaders to support the advancement of literacy and general knowledge that's represented by the concept of a public library. When I look at our community, I do not see Stockton, California, or Detroit, Michigan. I see a prosperous, thriving community with a good economy that should have a library system it should be proud of and should be keeping libraries open, not closing them, not cutting budgets, not reducing this type of library service. It is not a matter of financial necessity or capability. These decisions are a reflection of your own personal commitments as a group to the ideals represented by the public library system. So if, as I understand to be the case that you have actually rejected the notion of cuts of this magnitude, are indeed working off of a higher budget which restores and maintains current funding, I do want to sincerely thank you on behalf of the Friends of the Library. That does reflect a commitment to the library that is greatly appreciated. I do think that this has not always been the case of the Assembly collectively. The legacy of the body in recent years has been consistent and repeated cuts. We represent...
Could you wrap it up? Actually,
Yes.
Mayor Sullivan has a question. Maybe he will help you finish your thought.
Well, thank you, Brooks, Mr. Chandler. Thank you for testifying. You made a comment at the start about why would anybody propose such a thing, and I think you're aware that the city budget is based on revenues less expenses, and for 2013, the projected revenues less expenses was $30 million short. $30 million. And until the Assembly makes a policy call that says we are going to allocate some of the unused and unavailable school district tax money, that problem becomes an $18 million problem. It's not easy to solve. So I just hope you're aware of the challenge that is faced when you're looking at 30 and now it's 18. And, judging from the sense of the Assembly, the B budget that we've proposed, which does allocate more revenues from the school district, does fully restore the library funding, does fully restore transit funding, and several other areas as well. So I think you've found the will of elected officials who, despite an $18 million deficit, are willing to make that commitment to the library. So I didn't want to get into too much debate here. I just wanted to make sure for those waiting to testify as well that that's the situation we're faced with, and that's how we've responded until such time as you guys vote and confirm that.
Thank you.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I'm responding to the numbers that are shown on the documents, which until there's a vote, I don't consider to be a done deal. So
thank you. We appreciate.
You're going to get input from me on.
Well, thank you, and we definitely appreciate all of your hours of volunteering. Thank you very much.
Ladies and gentlemen of the Assembly, my name is Joe Murray, M-U-R-R-Y, and I am here representing the Anchorage Library Foundation as its president. Thank you for taking the time to hear all the comments made today in support of our library system. We sincerely appreciate it. My family and I moved to Anchorage from Milwaukee, Wisconsin in late 2009, so I'm not a lifelong Alaskan, I'm not a longtime Anchorage resident, but that move was a bit of a leap of faith, as you can all imagine. We were both longtime Midwesterners and city dwellers. One of the things that made it easier for us was the resource that is the LUSAC Library and that wonderful facility that we are currently occupying at this moment. In particular, my daughter, who had just turned 4, loved spending a lot of long winter afternoons, as we all know, that we have, in the children's section as she learned to read. And like many children in our fine community, she continues to love and look forward to our numerous trips to the library. As a longtime user and supporter of libraries, I see the library system, and LUSAC in particular, as a great equalizer in our community, and it's a place where people of all ages and backgrounds have access to the same information as resources. Now, as you've heard from the people that spoke before me, from Gretchen and Brooks, the library has big plans to improve technology and increase youth educational programs over the next year in support of major community initiatives, like the 90% by 2020 initiative and the AEDC's Live, Work, and Play initiative. I'm sure we're all aware of those. The success of these plans hinges on adequate municipal support. And in that vein, we thank the members of the Assembly, and I'm going to take a little bit of another leap of faith here, for not adopting the catastrophic cuts in the proposed A budget, and ask you to strongly consider providing additional support for the Library Future Plan. The Library Future Plan, as Gretchen mentioned, requires a modest addition of $400,000 in additional municipal support. This will increase teen educational opportunities citywide, provide high-speed internet and technology classes at all public library locations, and accomplish the extremely important task of launching the LUSAC renovation project. The LUSAC renovation is key to the ongoing relevance and effectiveness of this great facility. After 25 years, I think we can all agree that renovation and updates are needed to support the great program work that is taking place here at LUSAC. And we at the foundation believe strongly in the public-private partnership model that has raised over $14 million for capital projects and new services since 2006. The continued support of the municipality is critical to the Foundation's ongoing fundraising efforts that have supported both library system operations and capital projects. And in the future, we plan to launch a capital campaign that will make the renovation of this landmark building a rousing success. As a critical component of the library future plan, a second development staff person would help secure state grants, promote a bond, and coordinate private investment in the upcoming LUSAC renovation campaign. That said, the support and investment of the municipality will be crucial to LUSAC's renovation, as well as any private investment efforts will be rendered ineffective without meaningful public support.
Thank you. Could you wrap it up, please?
I will. One thing I've learned about Anchorage in my 3 years as a resident is that the citizens are proud to be resident and proud of what the city offers. It's shown by the support for the 90% by 2020 and ADC's Live, Work, and Play. I ask for your support in helping to continue the role of the Anchorage Library System and of the LUSAC Library in particular in contributing to the success of our community and its residents. And thank you all for your time today.
Mr. Starr.
Hi, thanks for addressing both budgets. We've got the capital budget in there, and your speech was pretty eloquent about making sure we remember we have approvals in that aspect. One of the challenges that the mayor didn't speak about was that we're about $260,000 below our ability to tax any more money. So some of the operational budget stuff you asked for and the $400,000 seems to be surfacing as, we're right up against the top of what we can actually tax for. So $263,000 has to be spread out here, or we have to cut from other departments. So I think you're starting to get the nuances. Keep studying what we're studying. We've got amendments coming, and I appreciate the information from you.
Thank you, Mr. Starr, and we appreciate your support.
Mr. Flynn.
Just real quick, though, let me make sure I have this clear. The $400,000 you're asking for is operating recurring funds as opposed to one-time monies?
It is operating recurring funds. Yes, Mr. Flynn.
Thank you.
Thank you. There appears to be no other questions. Thank you very much.
Good evening. My name is John Zazada. I'm representing the Anchorage Neighborhood Health Center. I think as many of you can probably guess, one of the most frequent questions that we get at the brand new health center is, when are we going to get a bus stop? For us, public transportation really has become an important component in guaranteeing a continuity of care for all of our patients. As you all know, we've worked with the administration and the Assembly to address public transportation needs of our most vulnerable patients, those with low and moderate incomes that rely on the bus, the homeless, and the elderly and disabled that can't always rely on the Anchor Rides and the Senior Rides program. We thank all of you for the amendment last year that enabled us to start the shuttle that we began on September 17th. In its first 6 weeks of operation, it's serving an average of 21 patients a day, which is over what we had originally thought we would be serving by this time. We also thank the administration for including $40,000 in continued funding for the shuttle in 2013. Unluckily, that only covers about 5 months of shuttle operations, so we would like to request the Assembly support again this year in an additional $60,000 so that we can operate the shuttle throughout 2013. We've worked with the administration throughout the budget process on a proposal to expand route number 75 so that it could include a stop at the new health center, and we would be willing, if that does come about in 2013, to discontinue the shuttle operations. We don't have hard figures on how the health center saves the municipality of Anchorage money, but we do know that vulnerable patients are less likely to delay care until they need to call for emergency services. We do know that we serve 1,600 homeless patients, and if they have access to the health center, they are less likely to use the community service patrol services and emergency services so that they get to the hospital to receive care. The new health center just continues to grow. We've added 1,500 patients just this year so far, and as we ramp up operations in the new building, We anticipate serving between 8 and 9,000 additional new patients in the coming year. Again, public transportation is an invaluable link in providing a full continuum of care to anyone that needs it in the community, and we appreciate your support as we look ahead to a permanent public transportation option for Anchorage's Health Center. Thank you.
Thank you very much. There does not appear to be any questions. Thank you.
My name is Cindy Gilder, Gilder, and I'm here today as one of the 3-year board member for the Anchorage Neighborhood Health Center, but probably more importantly, as a 20-year patient of the center. I want to first thank you for providing the shuttle service to the center. Public transit provides critical services to the center's patients. I'm not one of those patients that happens to need the public service, but as having sat in the waiting room for the last 20 years, I can tell you that a lot of the center's patients do. You may remember that last year when I came here to ask you for public transit, I told you about a friend of my husband's who at that point was somehow he can't make good decisions, and his shower wasn't working, so he was taking the bus from his house in Muldoon over to our house in West Anchorage to take a shower. Well, I'm glad to report that he's gotten his shower sorted out, but that doesn't necessarily mean that he has all of his life together, as some people do. He happened to call me the other night asking about mass transit to the center, and I was happy to be able to explain to him how to get the shuttle service so he could get services. And it's for something that I've been bugging him about to take care of for a while medically. It's people like this that we need to help. Transit is important. Medical and dental care is important. Having both is critical. Without this, people like my husband's friend can end up in the emergency services during their life, and that costs all of us. I appreciate your fully funding this service.
Thank you very much. There appears to be no questions.
Hi, members of the Assembly, Mr. Mayor. Thanks for having me here tonight. My name is Mike Davidson. It's D-A-V-I-D-S-O-N. I'm a 31-year resident of the municipality of Anchorage, a member of the International Association of Firefighters. I've also worked in public safety services for the last 20 years, various capacities. I'm here tonight to testify to some of the portions contained within the budget. I know you face very, very difficult decisions. Listening to the other people speak here tonight is very compelling. I don't envy the position that you have to be in to make these difficult choices that our city and your body face. Having said that, though, I believe that public safety is a fundamental responsibility of our government. It's one of the main reasons that governmental bodies are formed, is to provide for public safety. In our municipality, the public is well served by the system that currently ensures their safety. I believe that we should continue the system as it exists in a manner that's provided well for the citizens of our municipality. Our citizens have voted in recent years repeatedly to provide additional apparatus and facilities to provide for the public safety in the city, and I believe have strongly indicated their desire to have a strong public safety network. The reduction of either personnel or apparatus, whether it's in a transient or permanent form, both provide a direct reduction of service to the citizens of Anchorage. I don't think that as part of our budget deliberations we should consider reductions of service to the citizens of Anchorage in terms of public safety. I know that you face very difficult decisions. I know that our city faces some very difficult decisions, but I firmly believe that public safety is a fundamental responsibility of our municipal government, and that continuing to provide our citizens with public safety they've indicated their desire to receive is an important part of your budget consideration process. Thanks for having me speak this evening. I'd open to any questions.
Thank you. There appears to be no questions. Thank you very much.
Hello, Mayor Sullivan and the members of the Assembly. I'm Sally Speaker, S-P-I-E-K-E-R, and I'm Chair of the Public Transit Advisory Board. The charge of our 9-member board is to make recommendations to the Mayor and the Assembly regarding budget, capital improvement, and enhancements. We've submitted a resolution to you, and we have additional copies. After many meetings this past spring and over the summer, actually in this fall, including meeting with the mayor and his staff in this fall, we have identified services that we think need to be provided for our community. We've also been discussing sources of revenue. The board supports Budget Plan B to maintain current services. The board does not support an increase in fares with a decrease in service.
Thank you, members of the Assembly. My name is Jedediah Smith, and I also serve on the Public Transit Advisory Board. Last spring, the board appeared at 11 community councils across the city, and we consistently heard that residents want a dependable, reliable public transportation system. They want to be able to access bus stops in the wintertime. They want to be able to count on when the bus is going to show up to get them to work on time. The reasons why we're making these recommendations in support of Budget Plan B, and also we're supportive of providing access to the Anchorage Neighborhood Health Center, but we also want you to consider adding an extra bus route to the number 75, which would service the health center. The number 75 bus is the third most productive route in terms of revenue hours, and it's the fourth most productive route in terms of ridership. Currently, moving the route on the 75 to service the health center would add approximately 6 minutes on that service, and so that would impact all of those people who are using the bus to get to work. We feel that adding frequency on that 75 would have a benefit for all riders and would be a very good replacement for the shuttle that is in place.
Mr. Starr.
Well, thanks for your resolution, and it speaks to one of the capital improvement programs. It's that the project for the hub moving it to the Midtown is vital. So be sure your network gets expanded to include the lobbying that would be necessary to convince Juneau to help us with that. I think there's a secret there, but the 1.1 million for additional funds. As chair of budget, I just don't know where to come up with it from a taxing perspective. So we'll continue to scrub, but if it means taking it from somewhere else, that's a tough hoe. So thanks for your service on the committee and getting engaged in the topic. Let's be efficient with that Midtown hub and then look for some of the other solutions as they put themselves forward. Thank you for that.
Ms. Osiander.
I love the recommendation, but I have no clue at all how it's possible. Could you help us with this at the state level? We've got some recognition that there needs to be some state support for public transit. There's a format for that, but it's been zero funding. But thanks for the good work. Just need some help.
Ms. Drummond.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The previous speaker, there has been a couple of $1 million that the state has given to municipalities and boroughs for transit. It's just that Anchorage chooses not to use its money towards operations. I think we need to make a change in that respect and also encourage the state to send more money our way. It's one of the few that doesn't properly support transit in the country. Thank you.
If I could just have a minute to respond to that. Last year, thank you very much to the lobbying efforts of the Alaska Mobility Coalition. The state legislature did appropriate $2 million statewide. We as a board are aware of a little over $400,000 that the municipality did get. It is not included in the Plan B budget proposal. We have, as a board, had some discussions of how that money would be used, but we really think that the legislature is going to look closely at how this assembly and how this city is going to use those funds, and we really don't feel that using it to offset taxpayer revenue, but in fact use it towards new service is going to be the best benefit for that and ensure future success in securing state funding.
Thank you. There appears to be no other questions. Thank you both very much.
Good evening. My name is Joy Green Armstrong, and that's GREEN-ARMSTRONG. And I'm here to speak in support of our library. I'm on the Library Advisory Board. And for the last 5 years, our library each year has had to deal with budget cuts. And yet, our library is supported throughout the community. The library itself is a community, and I come to speak to you about that, how well our money is served in the library. It not only provides education, it also provides entertainment, because at the library, people that could not otherwise come or go out and buy a CD can come there and obtain that. It's really a level playing field for young people that may not be performing well in school. There's story time, and there's an outstanding staff. Our library's technical support is very slow. I'm not technically astute enough to talk about bandwidth, but what I can tell you is that our bandwidth is equal to perhaps some households. That's not what a city of Anchorage wants to have. We have wonderful visitors that come, and if our budget were to be cut, our hours would be cut. And I don't think a city our size, with the population that supports the library the way it does, really can afford to cut our hours that way. We do provide a wonderful service. And so I just came to share with you my feelings. I volunteer for the library because I believe in it, but I also believe in Anchorage. And I believe that a community that is well educated, that has a good library system, speaks for itself and will continue to grow. And that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Starr.
Well, the mayor's B budget puts everything back in. I'm right here.
Oh, okay.
It puts it all back in, so we're basically keeping 2012. But 2 points that I hope you use the word cuts with such finesse. However, this year's budget is about $20 million more than we spent last year citywide. So when we talk about cuts, we have to remember that they may not be meeting all the requests for service increases, but by far we're keeping up. $20 million is no small feat. Can you come back when we approve the budget sometime? Hopefully we're going to do that on the 13th of November. So I'd like you to hear the debate and the discussions on that, because I don't want to be put in that box of not supporting my library. And we don't debate tonight, but I'm trying to do the best I can to inform. I'm supposed to ask you a question, but I'm not going to. I'm just going to leave you with that.
May I just
Thank you very much.
Thank you. May I make just one small statement? Thank you, Mr. Starr. I'm not just asking that you pass the budget. I'm also speaking in support of our operating $400,000. And I should be clear about that because it's needed. Because for so many years we have operated at, you may not call it a cut, but it's been pretty thin. And we've had some really great staff people that we've had to see go. And they believe in the library as much as I do. So with that, I'll finish up. Thank you.
Thank you very much. There appears to be no other questions. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Kimberly Mack, last name M-A-C-K. I've lived in Alaska since 1993. Most of that time has been in Barrow, and now I'm in Anchorage. And like most of the people in line, I'm guessing all of the people in line were asking for the B budget. I don't think you're going to hear from anyone who has asking for cuts. And I'm also assuming that all of us are voters because we tend to be the people who come out and want our voices heard. Specifically, I would like to support the B budget for the public transportation. A lot of people have been speaking about those who have limited means, but some of us take the bus, have multiple college degrees, have jobs, have families, and appreciate the bus system for all kinds of reasons. Also, you are representing all of the residents of Anchorage, not just some of them. So I want to leave with that. Thank you.
Thank you. There appears to be no questions. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Jeff Bayless, B-A-Y-L-E-S-S. As you could tell, I work for the fire department. I'm assigned to Station 11 in Eagle River as the senior captain and would like to support the full funding of the fire department. Right now, it is the official vehicle to be closed as Truck 11. Moving that around, though, effectively is robbing Peter to pay Paul, because when we take the people or the rig away from the community, we increase somebody's response time and we cause other people to wait. Currently, Station 11 has been into the Chugiak Fire Service area twice today and a number of times this past week. When that happens, if there is no Truck 11, there will be somebody coming from Station 6 or Station 14 or Station 3 to provide fire coverage to the Eagle River community. So at some point, on top of the $1 million plus cuts we've taken every year for the last few years, we begin robbing Peter to pay Paul. Where will this bad emergency be? Well, maybe it won't be there, but when it shows up there and the fire apparatus isn't there that used to be, then that part of our community suffers. And while I realize that you are faced with great fiscal challenges, the fire department has worked very hard over the last number of years to address multi-million-dollar budget cuts every year in the most effective way. Now we've reached the point where the people who provide the services, there will be less of them in different places to do that. When we talk about a vehicle being closed part of the time of the year to cover overtime, the number that's tossed out is 355 days a year, which is surely an awful lot of time to be closed. And so, again, I thank you for your support for the fire department and look forward to your public safety funding.
Ms. Osiander?
This is what's the right word? All-wheel drive, the wheels turn sideways? What's that called?
All of the wheels turn on that and give it the ladder truck and give it a fair amount of maneuverability.
Okay. I've been told contradictory things. I've been told that that truck is necessary to get up some of the roads, particularly Skyline Drive and Mile High Drive. And I've been told by other people that no, any ladder truck could get up those roads. What's your experience?
My experience is that that particular vehicle during dry road seasons or during packed snow seasons is very effective at going places that other vehicles, other ladder trucks would not go well.
Okay. It's also my understanding that's the only ladder truck in the municipality that has that kind of drive.
That is correct.
And as such, it was purposely requested by the staff at Station 11 to be there and that location. Is that true?
That is correct as well.
Thank you.
There appears to be no other questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you all.
Hello, my name is Verena Fabric. It is spelled V-E-R-E-N-A, and then my last name, F-A-B-R-I-C-K. I just wanted to verify that the buses are still running Sunday.
Yes, they will be.
Okay, and another thing that I wanted to talk about is the bus prices rising up. I am a full-time student at Academy of Hair. I just moved here, and I've never used the buses other than when I just moved up here. But I pay the full price of it, and I live with my aunt, and I'm trying to be independent, so, I got a job, but I only work up to 2-3 days a week if I'm lucky. And raising up the prices would make it very hard for me to pay for it every month. And I use that every day. I'm on the bus every day. If I'm not going to school, I'm going to work. And I just wanted to voice that.
Thank you very much. I don't see any questions. Thank you.
No problem.
Hi, my name is Jonathan Warren, W-A-R-R-E-N. I moved up here recently, about 3 years ago, from Washington State, and I'm here to talk about the bus fare increase. In Spokane, Washington, where I come from, the bus is $1 for an adult to ride. The riders are able to catch a bus every 15 minutes as opposed to every hour to half hour or something like that up here. The $55 monthly pass up here seems to be a little bit ridiculous for the service that is provided. Today, coming here to talk about this, I was catching the bus, and a bus driver, I was clearly at the stop, and the bus driver drove right past me, didn't stop or anything. And I don't know exactly how to go about complaining about that to the bus systems. I mean, I called the number and I get this automated messaging system. I just would like to see if you do approve of raising the fare increases, that we see that we are provided the services that are promised for us to pay for, that not like a bus driver ignoring his duties and just driving right past you. That's all.
Ms. Osiander?
I pleaded for no questions, but this is something I've already asked Mr. Wilbur about. Where is there a complaint service and how are complaints registered? And he was working on that for me, but you may want to talk to him. He's in that brown suit right over there with his hand up in the air.
Hey, how's it going?
You're welcome.
No.
Thank you. There appears to be no other questions. Thank you.
I'm short.
Yeah, and actually, you can pull it down from the top there.
Okay. My name is Shirley Smith, S-M-I-T-H, and I'm glad that you're going to keep the Sunday schedule, but I'd like to ask you if any of y'all know what this is.
Bus route.
Okay, it's a bus schedule. It's a pocket one. I also like to ask any of the council members, have you rode the bus a day, week, month, or something? If you see that, especially on Sunday, I'm lucky if I can get to church on time when the buses are on time, but when you're going to go up on the rate, and all I live on is Social Security disability. I didn't know I was living below the poverty level, but I found out. And when you're going to go up on the fares, even with a discount for me, and then I have to buy little things like this or a book, that just adds to my fare. I can't afford it. And half the time when I get to church, it's like I said, late, because there's like the time it takes bus 2, it's like 10-something. Church starts at 11, and if they are running on time, I get there on time. If not, I guess I'm one of those fair weather Christians. But I do appreciate this bus system. It's one of the best I've seen, other than Las Vegas, which wants your money. And I do appreciate our library. It's one of the best ones I've ever seen. But we do have to support that. And yes, I do know, well, the mayor's gone, that yes, the city's in a deficit. Well, our country's been running that way anyway, so what's new? We go with what we have. But I do know that before I came here in 2000, that they had gotten a grant from the government so everybody could ride the bus for free all winter long. Well, it seems like when I came up, it disappeared. I don't know if it was here when I was gone because I couldn't tell. But it really helps those of us. That is my only mode of transportation. I use it to get groceries. I use it to go to the clinic. I use it to go to church. And I don't get the luxury of riding in a nice car all by myself or putting on a fur coat when I'm cold. I got that little thing I found in the dumpster, and I sewed fur on it that I found. You guys got to help us out. We do more for the environment because we get as many people in the bus as we possibly can. We help the libraries. We help businesses. So why do we get the shaft? I mean, why do we get told, well, it's all about the money? Well, you can do things according to the money, and you can follow the money. But sometimes you just got to do what's right. Because I know when a council follows God and lets Him lead them, they are never going to have to worry about a thing. And if you study some of the books, like Seattle, Washington, long time before I was born, of course, they had one of the healthiest cities. The police didn't know what to do because people were getting saved and doing what was right. So why can't we have that now? Why can't we just do what's right, and maybe we lose a little money in the process, maybe we help nonprofits, but if we do it right, it's going to come in, and we're going to get payback in a good way.
Thank you. There appears to be no questions. Thank you very much.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for the opportunity to say hello tonight. I think I should ask the lady who preceded me to start praying for the library. It might help. I picked this up as I came through the door out here on what is now the main entrance of the library.
And your name, please?
Oh, excuse me, Don McDermott, M-C-D-E-R-M-O-T-T. And I apologize for that. not for the name, but not spelling it. I picked this up as I came through the door. At almost any hour of the day when the library's open, you find a bunch of people hanging around inside that door. And they're not just hanging around, they're shopping for the books that are being discarded and cycled out of use in the library. And just before you go through that door, I'd invite you to look up and see what the situation is with the coverage up above. As you go upstairs, you'll find young parents with kids who've got armloads of books. I think that's important in our community also. Our son, when he was in high school, he's a West High grad and went through Romig, used to come to the ZJ, and that's when I found out about this place. We got here in 1970, and he got here in about 1980. Anyway, he would go to the ZJ, and I'm sure he was hanging out sometimes here. I can't think of a worse place to hang out. I can think of a lot of worse places to hang out, as a matter of fact. He did go through West High, went outside, got a degree in early childhood special education, taught in the bush for 5 years, has now gotten a graduate degree and a principal's credential, and is in his second year as a elementary principal at Willow Elementary School. So we're justifiably proud, but we like to think that the library and his love for books and reading and learning has brought something to a larger community. He was also a member of the youth court, which delighted us. One of his good buddies in the youth court was a young man whose name you'll recognize, Connor Sullivan. Interesting name in this town. And anyway, I finished my graduate work at the University of Portland, which has a school of librarianship, and they suggest, in fact require, that you put your dissertation in the library. And I thought I'd try a little thing that somebody else I had heard tried. I stuck my dissertation in there and put a $10 bill between pages 35 and 36, or 36 and 37, I'm not sure which. I've been back several times since, and that's such a wonderful work of writing that the $10 is still there. I think I'll go get it and donate it to the Friends of the Library. Thanks for your time.
Thank you. Mr. Hahnemann.
Mr. McDermott, thanks for your testimony, and quite interesting. I hadn't heard of that, putting the $10 bill in between, but thank you. Proud of your son as well. You should be, because you've obviously contributed to the tax base for this library when it was built and has continued, and he's obviously made the best of it, so you should be proud of him. Thank you for your support, and thanks for coming up.
Thank you, Mr. Hahnemann.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Carol Sturgielewski, Sturgielewski. I'm a member of the Friends of the Library Board, have been for about 10 years. I'm also a parent, and was very pleased about a year or so ago when the mayor initiated the Education Summit to study how we can make Anchorage a better city through educating our population, and Alaska as well. This is, I think, one of the most important things on people's minds these days. In order to have a strong economy, we need to have an educated population. And the thought that our library is not up to national standards seems to fly in the face of that need for a better education for all our children, and not just our children, but our adults too, the adults who didn't have a chance to finish their education when they were younger, new people who are coming into our community, many of them from other cultures who may have been working on hard all their lives and not had a chance for a good education. I would strongly urge you to support the B budget, and also to consider, if at all possible, the addition of the $400,000 to the library as requested by folks earlier in this lineup. And Ms. Osiander and the mayor have referred to, there has to be some pain. We don't have it all. And I would remind you that the library has been in pain for a long time. Year after year after year, we get cut. We have statistics that show that since 1985, our population has dramatically increased. Our municipal budget has more than doubled. The number of library card holders has more than doubled. And yet the library is operating
with about $500,000 less a year than we had in 1985. I would challenge you to find an adequate business operation or nonprofit that manages to get by on what we do. And as a member of the Friends of the Library, our volunteers, as Brooks said earlier, put in thousands of hours of volunteer time. There is support here in the community for a strong library, and I would remind you that Anchorage is approaching its 100th anniversary pretty soon. And one of the marks of a great city is an educated population with a strong economy and a good quality of living, which includes a great library. I hope you'll keep that in mind. Thank you.
Thank you. There appears to be no questions. Thank you.
My name is Jane Johnson, Johnsson, and the budget Plan A that cuts the People Mover Route 102, the part of it that goes Eagle River, Anchorage, to cut that would be a financial hardship for me. Right now, I pay $55 a month for a 30-day bus pass. Without the bus, I'd be paying $200 plus for petroleum for my car. And I was very surprised to hear that the Eagle River Anchorage part was recommended to be cut, because I take the last bus out of Eagle River and it's full, sometimes standing room only. And on the way home, it's also not always full, or not always standing room only, but there's a lot of people on there. So I would just like to say, all of us that are on that bus, I don't even know how many seats there are, but let's just say there's 50 seats and 2 to a seat. That's 100 people. Well, that's without that bus, that there's another 100 cars on the road. Have you seen the traffic in the morning between Eagle River and Anchorage? And also, I'd like to say that if I work very near the Anchorage Neighborhood Health Center, and if there was a bus stop there, that would help me out too. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Appears to be no questions. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Sheila Blanco, BLANCO. I thought I was holding somebody's place, you'll be glad to know I'm not prepared for this. This is the first time I've ever spoke publicly. I used to work out at the airport. I think I've seen every one of you out there. Every one of you. I've cleaned up after you, too. I would have loved to have taken the bus to work every day. When I first started out there, it wasn't even available. And I see by the bus schedules, it's still not fully available. Now, I'm going to appeal to you guys as business people. I've worked up here for 40 years, and most of it is in service to the public. Most of the time, you will lose money if you don't give the best service. We're Anchorage, the metropolis of Alaska, and, we should at least have 24-hour service for buses out to the airport or, on the main lines. You might want to consider rezoning them. But I haven't been to this is the first time I've been to the library since the hours were cut. Okay? If you want more money, there's such a thing as sales tax. There's ways to generate it. Most people in this town, if they aren't making enough money, most of us will go get a second job. We generate more. Okay? So I would like you to consider maybe, a C measure, of like, well, what can you do to raise money other than, sell buildings that house nonprofits. I think you're all very smart people, and I'm sure you can come up with something other than cuts, cuts, cuts. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Hahnemann.
Ma'am, I just wanted to tell you, you did a good job. If you're not used to speaking before, I think you did a good job. You kept on point in the message, so thank you for doing that. And, we do have limits. We have a cap. And certainly, one of the things I heard a speaker earlier say, we've been living in deficits around the country. One of the good things we can all rely on is that by the end of this year, we have to balance our budget. We just, by law, it has to be that way. So we are working with finite resources, but I understand where your priorities and your concerns, and very good point, so thank you.
Well, we still haven't gotten the sales tax yet, and we're the first metropolis, I think, that I've ever been to that hasn't had one.
It would take about 60% of the vote of the people that come to vote to make it happen. And I think it's been tried several times, so we'll keep at it, but that's good points.
Well, advertising, we, lost our coastal management over advertising, All right, thanks.
Thank you.
Good evening, members of the Assembly. My name is Deborah Williams. I'm the Executive Director of the Anchorage Youth Development Coalition. Thank you for giving us all an opportunity to testify tonight. Youth in Anchorage represent approximately 30% of our population, but 100% of our future. For Anchorage to thrive going forward, it is essential that our youth are healthy, educated, supported, and substance abuse free. Survey results show that most teens are not binge drinking or using marijuana or engaged in other risky behavior. But unfortunately, about 1/3 of our teens are, in fact, engaged in risky behavior and deserve our attention. 1/3, as I'm sure you can all agree, is simply too many youth. So what can we do? Results from an in-depth analysis by the University of Alaska Anchorage's Dr. Gabe Garcia and United Way of Anchorage's Sarah Sledge show there are 4 factors that have the strongest effect on decreasing the odds of youth engaging in risk behavior. I've brought a copy of this extraordinary study for you. I strongly encourage you to review this. You will find it very enlightening. 2 of the most important factors to reduce risky behavior and promote positive behavior are 1, having youth involved in organized after-school activities 2 or more days per week, and 2, having youth volunteer or help people in school or in the community 3 or more hours per week. And the more the better. As the study notes, for every 1 unit increase in the number of protective factors, either one of those, students were 37% more likely to report getting mostly A's and B's in school, 23% less likely to be currently smoking marijuana, and 19% less likely to be missing school or classes without permission. Investing in youth is essential to securing our future and their future. We cannot be penny wise and pound foolish with respect to our youth. Investments in youth pay for all of us. Now, I would particularly direct your attention to 3 pages, page 26. And what you'll see on page 26 is strength of association with not binge drinking. The number 1 protective factor for youth not engaging in binge drinking is spending 3 hours a week or more volunteering or helping. If you look at page 27, the number 1 protective factor for youth not being involved in currently smoking marijuana is being involved in organized after-school activities 2 days or more per week. And if you look at page 29, those 2 factors are number 1 and 2 with 53.9 and 46.1 with getting mostly A's and B's in school. I urge the Assembly not to cut Anchorage Youth Court. It is the best example of youth volunteering opportunities in our community. It is the prime example of the protective factor that we need. The same thing with Campfire, the same thing with Boys and Girls Club, and of course with any library implications for Anchorage Underground.
Thank you. Could you wrap it up, please?
Yes. The last statement. Our youth truly are our most precious natural resource. As you know, our state motto is North to the Future. By helping our youth succeed, we have the golden opportunity to put our money and our time where our motto is. And I would like to say one other thing, because there's been lots of discussion about money. We know that the state has a constitutional budget reserve that is over $10 billion right now. And as Assemblywoman Osiander said, it is time to go down to Juneau and say, our youth deserve this funding. And for us to lobby collectively as an assembly, as an administration, as a community for some of the money from the Constitutional Budget Reserve. We cannot afford to reduce funding for these critical programs for our youth and our collective future.
Thank you very much. There appears, excuse me one second. Mr. Hahnemann.
I think you summarized it and wrapped it up, Ms. Williams. Thank you, and thanks for bringing this. I really look forward to reading through its entirety, but I appreciate you bringing us the pages to our attention as well. So thank you for your information, because I learned some today from your testimony as well.
Thank you so much, Assemblyman Hahnemann.
Thank you very much. There appears to be no other questions. Thank you
so much.
Hello, my name is Kimberly Gianos. Last name is Gianos. I am the road supervisor for the Anchor Ride service in Anchorage, and I am happy to hear that you guys are supporting budget side B. But what I want you to know, I think most importantly, what I've come from for this service. I was a rider for this service. I had a stroke more than 10 years ago almost. I came back in July of 2007 as a driver, promoted into dispatch, and this year promoted into management. What this service provides to the community, as well as all the other nonprofit organizations and what they do for our community members, to me is more important than anything else. Do I understand the bottom line? Absolutely. I'm now in a position where I don't have a choice but to understand the bottom line, so I do understand it. But what I urge the Assembly to see is I'm a product of these community services, and this is what they can do, is they can truly help somebody. That's it.
Thank you very much. There appears to be no questions. Thank you.
Hello, Assembly. My name is Samantha Taylor, Taylor. I come to you today as a citizen of Eagle River, as a small business owner in Eagle River, and as an Eagle River Chamber of Commerce member, which tonight also is meeting in Eagle River to talk about the growth of our infrastructure there. And I'm here today to plea that you do not eliminate any fire service whatsoever to the Eagle River area, and I have several reasons why. One is because you'd be taking 4 firefighters away from us, 4 firefighters who would be somewhere else, and I want you to understand that in Anchorage, there are plenty of fire stations around with streets all over the place. In Eagle River, there's one street from Anchorage to Eagle River, and it's a mess a lot of times during different traffic hours, which would delay a response to any fire or emergency that we have. I don't want to be an alarmist, but we had an earthquake today. If we have a really big one, we could potentially be completely cut off from Anchorage. So please don't take these resources away from us. I also don't like the thought of our firefighters being in danger because they don't have the lack of support they need to be able to do the job that they need to do in getting into these homes and rescuing people. I know that Truck 11 has rescue gear. They use it on the accidents and on the Glen. So I'm just really asking that. I really don't necessarily care about Truck 11 itself as a piece of equipment, but please do not take those personnel away from Eagle River.
Thank you very much. There appears to be no questions. Thank you.
Good evening. Excuse me. Madam Chair, Ms. Jones, members of the Assembly, ladies and gentlemen. My name is David Levy, and I'm wearing two hats today. I'm the Executive Director of the Alaska Mobility Coalition, and we represent public and community transportation providers across the state. And I'm here to voice my support for the B budget regarding public transportation. I don't have much to say. I think to let you know that you've heard tonight a lot of stories on how people use public transportation in Anchorage to get to work, to school, and to medical appointments. There are 4 million stories every year that public transportation in Anchorage provides. Thousands of people every day use public transportation to make their lives easier. So I encourage you to support the B budget and to continue to increase transit in our community. Additionally, my organization helped to advocate with the legislature and the governor this year to add over $400,000 to People Movers' budget. It was with the expectation that it was a partnership, that the state would make an investment in public transportation, and the expectations were that local communities would make that investment as well. We will continue to advocate in Juneau for public transportation, but a strong show of support from the Assembly and the Mayor's office would be very helpful. Secondly, I'm also on the city's Library Advisory Board. I would strongly encourage you to support the B budget. As you have heard from lots of people, the library, this building, is the lifeblood of our community. It is a community center. It is a job center. It's a resource area. And as we're looking to expand library service, we're looking for private investment, public investment in this building and libraries all over the city. I think it's very important that the Assembly and the Mayor send a statement that we're willing to make some local investment in there as we look at making improvements to our library system. That's all I have, and be happy to answer any questions.
There appears to be no questions. Thank you very much.
Hello, my name is Corey Roberts. I'm an engineer with the Anchorage Fire Department. I've got 16 years on with the city, and 11 of the last years have been at the Eagle River Fire Station. I just want to make a comment to see the mayor's already gone. About 2 weeks ago, maybe 3 weeks ago, after the last meeting like this, the mayor was on the news and he made a comment that Eagle River will be all right without Truck 11 because we've got the Eagle River has the Chugiak Volunteer Fire Department as backup, and they've got Station 6 in Muldoon as backup. Station 6 is a given. I can count on them anytime for my help. Eagle River has a very small contingency of people there. We only have 10 people, and I cannot rely upon the Chugiak Volunteer Fire Department. I can say this because I used to be a volunteer firefighter, and let me say this, Mrs. Osiander, Mr. Starr, I know you guys have some knowledge of the Chugiak Volunteer Fire Department. I'm in no way bad-mouthing them, so please don't take me the wrong way. When I was a volunteer, had a pager, was not required to carry the thing. If the pager went off, I can pick and choose if I want to go on that call. I could decide not to go for any slew of reasons. I'm sick, I'm hurt, I'm tired, I'm under the influence of alcohol, I can't go, okay? Maybe I'm at work, okay? Maybe I just don't like the call, okay? A lot of us are in this for doing exciting things. That's why I want to become a volunteer fireman, so I could do exciting things, okay? We do a lot of stuff that's less than desirable, not very exciting. Carbon monoxide calls, smoke in the area calls, someone's just not feeling too good, okay? Okay, those are all good reasons why people don't show up, okay? Been at 11 for a long time, and we interact with the Chugiak Volunteer Fire Department a lot, just like my senior captain said here a little while ago. We've been there twice tonight, okay? When we get something big in Eagle River, me and my captain, we pull up and we decide if we're going to need more help, okay? We're going to call for Chugiak. Hopefully they show up. Do I count on them showing up? Absolutely not. Do I count on rigs from the cities to show up? Yes, I do. It's going to be a minimum of 12 to 15 minutes in ideal conditions for them to get there. Eagle River is unique in that we've got by far the longest or the largest response area of any of the different stations in the city. For any of the core city stations, from your station to usually to the outlying area of your response area, about 4 minutes response time. We go all the way from the Fort Rich Armory on the highway, all the way out to the edge of the Mat-Su Borough. And yes, that's Chugiak's turf. Like I said, we cover Chugiak's turf. It's 20 miles of highway, go all the way up to the Eagle River Visitor Center, that's 12 miles up the valley, and we also go all the way to the end of Highland Road. South Fork Volunteer Fire Department, you guys know what happened to that. We, Eagle River, are now at the South Fork Volunteer Fire Department. Okay. Thank you very much.
Excuse me, Mr. Trainee.
No, sir.
You were involved with Swiftwater Rescue for that gentleman that was in danger of drowning in Eagle River?
Yes, sir, that was me.
How many did you use? How many of the personnel of that station did you use?
Every one. Every last one.
So if they take Truck 11 out?
That man would have drowned right in front of us.
Okay.
Right in front of me.
And how long does it take for somebody from Muldoon to come out there? About 12 minutes?
Yeah, it was a nice dry road, it was the middle of the day. Yeah, probably 12 minutes.
Think the guy could have waited longer?
No.
Thank you for being here.
Ms. Osiander.
There's several things I really would like to say. The first one is I have knowledge of over 40 years in Chugiak, and I know of no situation where the Chugiak Fire Department has not responded when they've gotten a call, sir. And if there is such an incident, then maybe you could give me a call about it, because I'm real familiar with it. The second thing is, as I think my colleagues here can attest, I pretty consistently have advocated for Chugiak Eagle River, and I am very concerned about the impact of this. But you also have to realize the fire department budget is increasing by $4 million over just last year. So somehow we've got to find some give. So one of the things I pleaded with in the work session is there anything in the contract we can wiggle around on to help us? Well, I'm telling you,
yes.
It's important to look at that. When you're hearing some of the concerns that we're hearing, and I'd like to meet all of these, but it's not strictly a reduction, it's less of an increase. And I'm going to continue to fight for Chugiak Eagle River to get adequate fire protection, but please, sir, realize that there's some real significant costs in this department. Thank you. And again, I apologize, that wasn't a question.
Mr. Starr.
There's some research done. Of course, we inherit what the mayor gives us. It's his budget now, we have it. So, in terms of us making this stuff up, we're not. But I will say that we've done a really good job in the last 4 or 5 years. I think you're getting better at this process. I think listening to that, I know of every assembly member up here that opens that budget book and really studies it for solutions beyond that. And we'll continue to do that now, between now and the 13th, when we anticipate taking a vote on it. One of the questions that I've asked the administration is to provide a list of trucks that have 4 men on them, as the contract requires. There's 8 of those rigs. With your opinion of station and truck 11, why wouldn't we pick on a truck 2, for example, that has 4 people on it from that?
I'm not going to get into that. I'm not going to get into, if we keep truck 11, where should we make other things? I think that's maybe the angle that you're trying to take there.
No, that's just
do I have
my
any ideas for concessions for the fire department in another spot? No, I don't.
No, that wasn't at it at all.
Okay.
It's really, that's what I have to look at to make sure that we're doing our diligence. So as a fireman in the engine with the experience of truck 11, which, I'm not a fireman, so I guess that it wasn't to be flippant, it was to ask the question of why not. And I'm not trying to put you on the spot for that, but, there's some pluses that I see in terms of that. And I know that truck 11 doesn't run always with 4 people. It dispatches with 3. I've seen it in town going out with 3. So it's not the end all that the truck roll. It's got to go. People have to be served out in the field, and so it rolls with 3. So, the idea that we don't have always 4 people on there, I think also has to be mentioned. So if we're already doing it, is it a better and less risky thing to do it on truck 2 than truck 11? And you don't have to answer because you said you particularly don't want to. Can I ask you about academy staffing? And I don't want to get into overtime, although I'm going to call up a personnel costing report just to see how much overtime we're starting to load up on, and when do we reach that line between we need another academy now? Do you have anything to add to that?
Absolutely not. You're asking the wrong guy.
Okay. Thanks for testifying.
Okay.
Thank you. Mr. Trombley.
Thank you.
No, I have a question for you. Have you spent your entire time with the Anchorage Fire Department out in Chugiak Eagle River?
I've been on 16 years. I spent about 11 in Eagle River, and the other years have been various stations throughout the city.
Okay, Mike, and the reason I ask you that is that obviously in the Anchorage Bowl, we probably have less time and less distance between fire departments than what you would find from Muldoon to your location.
Correct.
If it came down to it, based on your experience, and I understand you guys back each other up on particular calls, if we had to, say, eliminate a different truck that didn't have the time gap between yourself and, say, Muldoon, would you have a recommendation as far as what truck could be eliminated from,
no,
based on your experience? Okay,
no, sir.
Thanks.
Thank you. There appears to be no other questions. Thank you.
My name is Dacry Wright, W-R-I-G-H-T. I was in a house fire in Eagle River in 2007. The firemen saved my life with Truck 11. Please don't take away Truck 11. We need it. What stands before you now is the result of a 5-minute delay. Thank you for all your help, Eagle River Fire Department, Station 11.
Thank you very much. There doesn't seem to be any questions. Thank you.
My name is Athena Tennant. That is my niece. I have lived in Eagle River most of my life. I grew up on Crestview Lane in Eagle River, and now I live in the Eaglewood subdivision with my 4-year-old daughter. 5 years ago, my niece Dacry was in the house fire in Eagle River with my other 2 nephews and a niece, which is just 2 miles from the fire station. My nephews didn't make it, but my nieces thankfully did. It's because of Fire Station 11 that my 10-year-old niece is here with us and was able to play soccer, which I got to see, and I loved that. With the firemen's use of Truck 11, they were able to get all 4 of the children out of the house. Our firemen are a big part of our community. They keep us safe when we need them, and it's a comfort to know that they're there when they are needed by any of the Eagle River residents and those visiting and traveling through. We need our Truck 11 to continue keeping us safe. It's the truck that can be used to make it up Highland and Skyland roads. Maneuvering the curves on those roads, in case you haven't been up them, can be kind of scary, especially in the winter. The Eagle River Fire Station, Station 11, is responsible for those that live in Eagle River from Highland Road all the way to the end of Eklutna, with the help of the Chugiak Volunteer Fire Station, with a population of 35,000 people from the 2010 census in the area. That's a lot of work for them when they're needed, and a lot of responsibility for them to bear regardless. It's 11 miles approximately from the Eagle River to Chugiak Volunteer Fire Stations. It takes approximately 20 minutes to get from DeBar Station to the house in Eagle River where my nieces and nephews were burnt. And Chugiak Station also uses Truck 11 when they need it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. There doesn't seem to be any questions. Thank you.
My name is Henry Wentz, and I guess I'm in support of Plan B. I guess that's helping the young people, with their youth court, because you want to work on prevention and not have recidivism when they're older, being old troublemakers like me. You don't want to cut the fire service department, because a minute counts, and this whole building can go in like 5 minutes, depending on the circumstances, and a minute really counts when it comes to someone's life. I've been in a fire, and those minutes really do count. So, Eagle River is a long way from town, and they do have a high hill there that you need to have a really good truck with all-wheel drive. I know this budget thing is not a real easy thing to go through, but it seems like the people that are being picked on the most are the people that are the have-nots, the people that can't afford to have a car, that can't afford to, like the lady that wanted to go to church on Sunday, and my mom that was an elderly woman that depended on the bus ride to go to her medical appointments, or my niece that has multiple sclerosis that depends on the bus. And they used to have the bus run out to Eagle River every hour. Now it just runs 2 times in the morning, or 4 times in the morning and 4 times at night. It's not all the time. Now you want to cut the Saturday and Sunday service too. That's really hard. And you guys want to make Anchorage an attractive city. So how are you going to do that when you don't have a good fire department, a good police department, a good library, things that will attract people that have good qualities like the firefighters and people that build the libraries and stuff? You're gonna attract the troublemakers like me that cause the cops to work harder and just be in trouble all the time, like those. You want to keep those young kids out of trouble. So I know there's a lot on your plate, but consider the people that don't have anything and how it's going to affect them and what you're here for, what your position is. And you're not here for a name, you're not here for glory. It's like those guys that go to church on a Sunday just to be seen, So that's all my 2 cents worth.
Thank you very much. It appears no questions. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Phyllis Spencer-Bells, and I'm here to talk about the Chugiak Route 102 bus. I really don't like the fact that even if you go with the not cutting of it, please hear my voice here. The people that ride the 102 bus are responsible, home-owning, tax-paying job workers. They commute from the only rural bus that there is in the city of Anchorage. I ride the bus, thanks to the police department. And I am a responsible adult. I am not an alcoholic. I am not a criminal. But as a community volunteer, standing next to the police department, I will still defend their funding and say this. You are better off removing the alcoholism, drug abuse, and criminals in the society than to cut the responsible homeowners' only mode of transportation, or one of them. What we have is a society full of people who come here from different places because they can't live in their villages or because they can't drink in their villages, and the alcoholism rate is very high. The suicide rate is very high amongst the natives because of it. There's also a very high amount of alcoholism amongst the white and other communities. And all day long I see these people on the bus, and all they want to do is get drunk and do drugs that should be illegal, and nobody does a thing about them. If you want to actually help the community, use the police department to do their jobs and remove these people, so more people can come in and show Anchorage what it's supposed to be. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Appears to be no questions.
Hi, my name is Terry Perez, P-E-R-E-Z. Did I hear a little bit earlier that the buses will be running on Sunday, that's not an issue anymore?
Right, we are intending to work from the mayor's B budget.
Okay, so, because that's what I was going to talk about, so I won't waste my time if you've already decided to do the buses on Sunday, but I just wanted to say hi, Mr. Mayor and Mr. Chairman and members of the Assembly. And I just want to say God bless the fire department. What a presence, and thank you for what you do for all of us, definitely. And I know you have to take away something, but please try and not take it away from the fire department or the police. This city is growing. I had an incident a couple months ago, and we called the police, and we called them 4 times while a person was being assaulted in front of us, and each time the dispatcher said, "We have no one for that call right now." That's a real sad thing, and I hope none of you ever have to go through that, and I hope none of you ever have a fire where you need these people, and they're not there because there's no more of them because of what you chose. Thank you, and thanks for what you're doing for us.
Thank you. There appears to be no any questions. Thank you.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Bill Rodman, and I've come here on behalf of support of the Plan B for the transit. I'm glad to find out when I first got here that the general sentiment of the Assembly is to not cut service. That's great, but at the same time, it should also be pointed out that the transit system could certainly be improved. There could be a route-by-route reassessment. I think early morning service is critical, late night service is critical, Sunday service is critical, but there are ways in which intelligent, responsible evaluation of the service could also be implemented. But what I really heard here this evening that was most important was the fact that there are certain critical revenue constraints that the city is now facing. And you know what? That inevitably means that there are going to become cuts in services regardless of how much you want to support something. I think it's really critical that the city realize that perhaps a different strategy should be implemented. I'm only a 2-year resident here in Anchorage. I have a son here. I've got 3 little grandchildren. I've retired to this area. Shortly upon coming here, my wife went into permanent assisted living, so I'm by myself. I've just faced a year of a very difficult medication regimen to put in check a virus that's attacked my system, so I haven't been feeling very, very well. But when I saw it on the bus, I depend completely and entirely on this bus service. And I also know that there are a lot of people that really are, they can't make it, they won't come. That's a general sentiment that, the general sentiment that government doesn't really pay attention. But you know, since I've been here in this assembly, I don't feel that way. I would come back in a minute to speak to you all because I see the responsiveness here. And that's very, very encouraging. Having come up from the San Francisco Bay Area, and that's just a whole different world. You know, the luxury, I come into this town and no sales tax, no income tax. Well, you know, there's a certain benefit to that, but one should also recognize that if you don't have some sacrifice, you don't carry some part of the burden, you don't feel responsible. You know what I'm saying? So I would really argue towards a local city sales tax. It's inevitable if we are at the level, as Mr. Starr said, you know, we've really come down to the point where if we're selling assets that have, you know, a critical impact on fragile organizations, well, you know, perhaps if there's no alternative, that's what we do. But we need to start thinking about being practical. I mean, for heaven's sakes, no sales tax at all. That's just incredible. And you know what? People should pay for the services they get. And it shouldn't just be property tax. You know. Anyway, I could go on, but thank you very much.
Thank you very much. There appears to be no questions. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, Assembly, good to be here. Good to see you again. Administration, I'm going to be real short.
Your name, please.
Oh, excuse me. Billy Ray Powers, Powers. Again, I'm going to be really short on this. The youth court thing. I love that youth court. My kids participated in it. It's really a valuable thing in our community. I mean, very valuable. My kids also enjoy student government, and it's important that we support our youth in the community. And you know, for the cost of one cop, we could have youth court. It's only a little over $200,000. One cop. We could keep this valuable program. But unfortunately, we just can't afford everything, and youth court doesn't have a public sector union monopoly representing it. So in that case, a little hard to deal with the police union, the fire union, I guess we got to cut youth court. We have to cut something. So I support the mayor's cutting of youth court. Got no choice. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Appears to be no questions.
Good evening. My name is Christy Wood, W-O-O-D, and I would like to speak briefly in support of fully funding public safety, especially the Anchorage Police Department and especially their traffic department. I'm an all-season bicycle commuter. My bicycle is my primary form of transportation all year long. I do this for the exercise so that my household can save money, so that I can be healthy, many reasons. But over the last few years, I've become increasingly concerned about an increase in distracted driving, aggressive driving, and a general disrespect for some of the basic tenets of traffic law by many of Anchorage's drivers. Recently, this fall, we were very upset to see a young cyclist struck in the crosswalk by a driver running a red light. He didn't just run the red light, he also ignored several important visual cues, all of which were telling him that he should have stopped his car. He did not. And now a 13-year-old girl and her family are paying the price of his disrespect to traffic law and his inattentiveness, his careless driving. So I would speak to support the Anchorage Police Department and their traffic department so that we can have more officers out there enforcing some of the very basic stuff of traffic law, not running red lights, not speeding, not ignoring stop signs or the crosswalk lines. Those are the behaviors that directly put me at risk and my family. They put you at risk too. They put your families at risk too. So I would like to see more officers in the traffic department available to enforce traffic law before someone like me or someone like you gets hurt by the increase in distracted driving, aggressive driving, and careless driving behaviors. Thank you.
Thank you. There appears to be no questions. Thank you very much.
Good evening. I'm Rod Harris. Last name Harris. I'm proud to represent the men and women of the Anchorage Firefighters as the president of the Anchorage Firefighters Union. And I want to start off by thanking all of you for your time over these last few weeks, taking the time to meet with myself as well as the administration. I know the job you guys have in front of you is a hard one, and tonight I want to come up and speak specifically to the BAC report that came out, and specifically within that report, I would like to speak to the 3 versus 4 person staffing. And I guess my goal in all this is to set the record straight. I've had the conversation with many of you about this. Starting out with a little bit of the history on it, basically this directly affects not only the safety of the public, but the safety of the firefighters. The National Fire Protection Association was formed in 1896 by the insurance industry, and it currently governs over 300 codes and standards applicable to life safety issues. Everything from electrical, the building codes, to the OSHA laws for the fire service are affected by these NFPA standards. Fire departments are required to report to the NFPA every 4 years on their own compliance with these standards. Specifically, NFPA 1710 is what drives the issue of having 4 firefighters on a fire truck. This is not something that was born within the Anchorage Firefighters Union, and it's not something that was born within the city of Anchorage. We are simply trying to work with the city to achieving compliance with the industry standard. Many fire departments like Seattle have already achieved the standard, and there's other departments out there like Boise who operate and staff and deploy their rigs in the same manner we do here in Anchorage today, where they have some with 3, some with 4 firefighters, but their goal in all of this is that they're working towards full compliance with this standard. In 1995, Mayor Mystrom introduced the first 4-person fire companies, and in 2008, the MOA and the IFF agreed to change the contract requirement up to 8, from 5 to 8. So today we operate with 8 of them. But there were 3 important bonds that were passed by the Anchorage voters in that period of time between 95 and 08 that drove this. The bonds were for Engine 14 at Tudor and Baxter, Engine 15 in Southport, and Truck 11 that we've heard about tonight out in Eagle River. The bonds included not only the money for the new apparatus, but as well as the operating and maintenance costs that included 4 people on those rigs. So when the requirement for 4-person fire companies was changed to 8 per day in 2008, the positions were already hired and the funding for them was already in place, meaning there was no additional cost imposed to the city at that time to raise the requirement. I'm simply asking for your support of public safety in the manner that the public has stepped up and said that they're willing to pay for. The voters, every time we put something new into service in the city of Anchorage, the voters are the ones who do that, and as recently as last year with Medic 7.
Mr. Birch.
Yeah, just good to see you, Rod. One of the challenges that we have in the budget this year is the explosive growth we're seeing in the labor costs, particularly in police and fire. The average cost of a police officer in this upcoming budget is $141,000, and that's with a 5% increase, contract mandated. In the fire department, it's $164,000 per fireman. And the reasonable approach of in most organizations, when you try to manage to a budget, and in the face of that increase, it seemed reasonable to me to expect a concession from the fire department going from 4 to 3. Do you see that as a possibility of and again, in most organizations, management retains the right to kind of, revise workforce in the face of budget reductions. And, we've got a lot of needs in this community, but we seem to be putting a lot of money into fire and police right now.
Yeah, through the chair, Mr. Birch, there's two issues there I'd like to answer. The first one would be your numbers that you're referencing in light of the pay of firefighters. My understanding is the administration themselves uses a figure of $125,000 for a firefighter salary, and that's including their benefits. I know of no firefighter that's making $164,000 a year unless they're working extra overtime hours or something to supplement that. And if it's an overtime-driven salary, then that's something that the department needs to go back and look at. Are we not hiring enough people to staff the department? It's the city's choice when they call the firefighters in off-duty to put them to work on an extra shift. There's nothing in the contract that says Engine 11 has to be called in on overtime today. We simply say if you're going to put a rig in service, here's the safety standards we would like to see followed. Those were negotiated with the city. The city agreed to those.
No, I fully understand that 5 years ago that contract.
Well, that's always been that way. That is not something that came about 5 years ago, and that needs to be identified because I've heard that comment made by you a number of times. The second thing I would like to answer in your question is directly to the 3 versus the 4-person staffing and whether you think the firefighters should step up and help out. And what I would answer to that is in 2004 and in 2009, this city had a budget deficit, and the firefighters were the first ones both times to step up and give money back to the city. And we are working with the administration currently on doing the same thing now, and I would ask for your support in recognizing that and recognizing that we have good employees working at the Anchorage Fire Department that are not making $164,000 a year as a base salary. And it's very misleading when you put it out that way.
No, and just to clarify, it's not the base salary. It does include overtime and benefits. It's a $62 million budget item, and there's 378 head count. So you just divide the numbers out.
Okay, so I don't think this is probably the time and the place to debate all that, but we work almost 3,000 hours a year on a normal time, and we have employees right now that are working nearly 4,000 hours in a year for the salaries that you're talking about there. So they're working the equivalent of 2 full-time jobs.
Great. Thank you.
Mr. Trombley.
And Mr. Harris, appreciate you coming down, and thanks for taking the time to meet with me last week. We got a publication here, I think it's called Firehouse, and it was a 2011 national survey on a bunch of different. One of the things that they mentioned was how many how many members are on a particular fire truck.
Right.
And a lot of them, there's a bunch of 4s. Like Anchorage is a 4, obviously. We see some Oceanside, California 3, and there's probably maybe about 100 in here that have 3, and there's actually some that have 2. Now I can't necessarily compare Oceanside, California to Anchorage. I don't know the population size. But my question for you is that I understand it's a national standard that people are moving to, and some of these actually have 5. Some cities actually have 5 on a truck. Is there any particular studies that you can show me to, or maybe on past Anchorage history where we see that there is a safety, that having 3 is less safe than having 4, some sort of study that says, yes, if you have 4, you have a less incident of a firefighter getting trapped or getting injured or something like that.
Yeah.
And the reason I ask this is because, I mean, there's some cities here that have 2 on a fire truck. Now, again, I can't compare some cities to Anchorage.
Right, understood. So in the early 2000s is when the NFPA 1710 standard was adopted. And shortly after that, the National Institute of Science and Technology's NIST, which they're a government agency that does a lot of industry testing and standards. They do work for the FAA, they do work for the fire service. They're not isolated to one area, if you will, of industry. They did a deployment report, basically, where they took 2-person fire companies, 3-person fire companies, all the way up to 6, and they ran them through same evolutions. They were looking for time stamps on certain tasks to be done and that type of thing. And that study identified 4-person rigs as being the most efficient and safest manner in which to operate. And that came out shortly after 1710 was adopted, and that's what's driven a lot of cities to move into that mandate. Additionally, OSHA has recognized that, and there's been some incidents around the country. A few years ago in Charleston, North Carolina, there was a fatality fire where 9 firefighters were killed. And it was found that that city operated with 2 firefighters on their trucks, or on their fire companies, and that was one of the leading causes that was basically found to have, killed those guys. There was a number of things in the report, but the staffing levels was the top.
Okay. The other question I have for you is the standard that you're talking about. So the 50 or 67 or so cities that are, I guess, are they out of compliance? Is there some sort of ramification? I mean, outside of the safety aspect, is there a financial ramification? Are homeowners' insurance rates going to go up as people look at an evaluation of Anchorage? What's the ramifications of outside of the safety aspect?
Yeah, obviously, like you say, the biggest thing is the safety, at least in our eyes, both for the public and ourselves. As far as when you start talking about, financial impacts, obviously anytime you're adding a body to the department, there's going to be a financial impact there. The trade-off to that is we deploy fire resources within the city of Anchorage, or within any city really, where you're deploying them based on both response time and how soon you can get a certain number of people on scene for certain types of calls. We've heard a lot of talk about the Eagle River Fire Station, but even within the city of Anchorage, we're challenged in some areas of town to get the number of people we need on scene within a benchmark time that we shoot for. And those are all times and standards that are identified by this NFPA study. It's not something specific to our department. It's recognized as a nationwide industry standard. The one thing I would like to, I guess, drive home with everybody on this is that the firefighters in Anchorage, they don't want to see a reduction in service. This 3 versus 4-person staffing keeps coming up, and this was specifically why I came up to talk tonight, was because it was concerning to me to see it show up in the budget advisory report that they're using that as a recommendation. We have a budget problem, and if we have a budget problem, let's focus on where that is. Is it within the salaries? Is it within the numbers? And that's what we're meeting with the administration and discussing. I don't want to see a reduction in service in Anchorage. I don't want to see Truck 11 or any other fire company taken out of service. And more so, I don't want to see us move backwards from trying to achieve this 4-person staffing. I work on a fire truck in this city, and I can tell you there is a difference when we show up on certain types of calls with 3 people versus 4. And the difference is delays, increased risk, or less safety, however you want to look at that.
Sure. And Madam Chair, I have one more question. I had asked the previous firefighter, and it was probably, I shouldn't have asked him that because he probably obviously didn't have the answer, but maybe you would.
Yeah.
Worst case scenario, the funding isn't there. The budget won't meet the needs of meeting Truck 11 out in Eagle River. And I understand the response time between Muldoon and Eagle River is a big issue, and I understand that. Has there ever been, have you looked at maybe identifying another truck where the response time between fire stations within the Anchorage Bowl isn't as great, where you could say, okay, we're going to cut this truck, and I hate to use that term, but we're going to cut this truck and we're going to reinstate Truck 11? Has that, and you don't have to answer it right now, I don't want to put you on the spot.
No, I'm prepared to answer it. So through the chair, I guess what I would say is I specifically have not looked at that, and for one reason, If we're looking to fix our budget problem, I think it's irresponsible for any of us, whether it's the Assembly, the administration, or the firefighters, to look at fixing our budget on the backs of what we're providing to the public in the form of public safety. The voters have gone to the ballot and basically said every time a new piece of equipment comes into service in town here, I referenced Medic 7 earlier because that's the most recent one, but all these rigs that we've talked about through the budget process, whether it be Engine 15, Truck 11, they've all come about through voter-approved bonds. And those bonds have to be approved by the Assembly and the administration before they even get to the ballot box. So we all have ownership in this process. The fire department comes to you and validates or justifies the need. You guys look at it and say, yeah, it's worthy of going to a bond, and then the voters step up and put the final stamp of approval on this. And I guess I would just ask the question back, who are we to take that out of service after they've asked for it to be in service? The justification, I can assure you, has not changed or gone away. When we put Engine 15 in service out in Southport, it was based on, the justification was based on response times. We could not provide service to that area within 4 minutes on a critical call, and a lot of that area within 8 minutes on the non-critical calls. So the justification was there. That area has continued to grow since the early, I think it was 2004 when we put that rig into service. I think it would be irresponsible of any of us to look at taking these rigs out of service unless the justification or the need goes away.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Harris. That's all, Madam Chair.
Mr. Hahnemann.
And thank you, Rob. Most of my questions have been answered, and thank Adam Trombley for bringing that through there, Mr. Trombley. Have you looked at particularly the Eagle River area and Truck 11 when the municipality annexed from the borough and took on, I think it was the early 80s, 83, 84, somewhere around there, when they annexed the municipal? Did fire service go earlier? And when did they add that apparatus, and when's the last time they've added an apparatus in Eagle River? Maybe my colleagues would know.
The last time we added an apparatus in Eagle River was with Truck 11. I'm sorry, through the chair. Prior to that, I'm not aware of or how it all played out with the integration of the city and the borough,
right,
if that's what you're referring to.
When was Truck 11 added? Do you remember?
Well, the bond, I believe the bond for that was passed in 99 or 2000, but the rig actually didn't go into service until 2001 because the facility out there at the time wasn't big enough to house the additional rig.
Move across the road, basically.
Yeah, so I believe it was in 2001 that we moved into the old Instar building there across the road.
And the justification for that was the need for, in the population growth and the need for the type of apparatuses out there?
Yeah, both. And, a lot of the talk with Truck 11 has been centered around, is there really a need for a ladder truck in Eagle River? And I've shared with a number of you that the ladder truck just doesn't bring that big ladder on top. The largest ground ladders we carry on the Anchorage Fire Department are 35 feet. So anything over that height is going to require an aerial apparatus, in addition to the other things that are carried on out there, obviously. And the most important one would be the staffing.
Thank you.
Mr. Starr.
A lot of those questions are coming from me, Rod. You know that. And,
yep.
It can't ever be that we're put in this box of not wanting to do the right thing. And really, we all do that. And there's some of us that take it very seriously. This is right in my backyard. I live a mile from those folks that were there. I responded to that as quickly as you guys did, or faster in some cases. I go to a lot of them. I see what's happening. So, at least give us the credit of trying to do our homework here to get the solution.
Oh, no,
I've
absolutely.
asked the question. Mr. Vikalis is working on some of that discussion. This budget, at the overall operational budget, is $20 million greater than it was last year across the board. Your budget's, the fire department's budget's about $4 million greater than it was last year.
Correct.
Almost all of us on this body have increased the budget every year, as asked, or in some cases over and above. So I think we're going to get there this year. I'm going to ask you again, and it'll be offline as we work towards this, is what does the solution look like? No fireman sitting out there is losing this job. What we're looking at is a redistribution, and not just 4, it's 12 folks that are being asked to go in other aspects of that. So what does the solution look like? And understand where we're at. We don't have any more taxing capacity. So did we give away tax capacity the year before? Maybe so. 265,000 shows up on the books. That's what we have, is 265,000. We have money in the bank. We absolutely do. But when you look at it down the road, that money is, either earmarked for additional cost increases next year or not. So, I don't know that you have the answer today. I know I don't, but I need to know what that solution looks like. Is it take it straight out of fund balance and appropriate it to overtime? You haven't said the word academy yet. We need to have an assurance of when we're going to put more people in the streets. I'm a growing community out in my area. I don't want that. So I need to know some of this stuff. We got between now and the 13th to do it. We're going to keep working on it. But right now, what does it take how much money? If it's a budget number, this one woman said it's all about money. Well, that's what we're talking about tonight. How much money do you need? And what does it look like? What's the solution look like? And where does it come from? Can you tell me?
My understanding right now is we're $1 million short for AFD.
What do we use it on, Rod? I don't want to interrupt you, but if we give you $1 million, is it straight to bottom line overtime?
Boy, that's a question way above my pay grade.
Well, we're going to keep talking about it because I need to know where it's going to go, and I'll appropriate more to an academy if you can tell me if that's the balance that we're talking about earlier. And I didn't mean to put the previous firefighter on the hook there, but that's the analysis that you have to help us do.
So I think the chief's done a very good job putting forward some information that basically identifies, at least from what I've seen, it identifies where we operate with benefit costs versus overtime costs and where that breakover point is. And we're below that number right now.
Okay.
So we do, and the administration's recognized that. They've put money into the S version, if you will, for an academy next year. And so my understanding is, unless something's changed today, the plan is to still move forward with the plan for an academy.
$500,000 doesn't start an academy quick enough for me. That's the problem. You're not going to get much for $500,000. That's going to be a late in the year academy, most likely, if you have to carry salaries forward. So,
again, that's above my pay grade, but my understanding is that if the money's approved, it's going to be announced in January.
Okay.
So,
why not truck 2 versus truck 11, Rod? Can you answer that?
Well, I think I answered that through the chair. I think I answered that to Mr. Trombley earlier, in that me specifically, I don't think it's responsible for us to be looking at reducing the resources. The public has voted and empowered us to put these things into service, and I think if there's truly a budget problem, it falls on us, myself included, to find a fix to this, and it shouldn't be reducing services. And I assure you, and I would ask the mayor, I guess, to comment on this, we have been working. We've been putting proposals back and forth.
We still have work to do. We have between now and the end of the year, at the very latest, to get a budget that works for all of us, and we're committed to doing it.
Well, I wasn't invited to the table on this until September 21st, and we've been working full-time since then. So
I didn't see the budget till October 1st, so, welcome to the club. We'll get there, Rod. I think just, speak clearly. We're doing our homework. I'm visiting the stations, specifically mine. We'll talk to that, but it doesn't have to be decided tonight. We inherited the budget ideas, and I think we're going to work through them. Thank you.
All right, thanks.
Ms. Osiander.
Did I hear you say that you believed that the voter approval for that rig included specific staffing figures?
Yes, and it does. When we put it...
Okay, I spent a fair amount of time on this. I got the ballot proposition. We did O&M on that.
Yeah, and
it didn't include numbers.
Within the O&M, through the chair, the O&M actually includes the staffing levels, if you will, that will fall into that rig. And what that does is it raises the tax cap ceiling so that
Right, we know what O&M is.
That funding will pull in there. So.
We really do. We've spent a lot of time talking about O&M and how inadequate the O&M figures were during the last administration. It was really frustrating because they were underestimating what actual costs were. I have that at home on my dining room table. I'll read it again, and let's talk some more, because that's not the way I read it last time. Thank you.
There appears to be no other questions. Thank you.
Thanks again, you guys. I really appreciate it.
Please, no clapping. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Whitney Sutton. I'm from Anchorage Youth Court. I'm the executive director, SUTTON. And I just realized there was one last thing we wanted to say from Anchorage Youth Court, and that is thank you for allowing us to come and speak before you guys for the last two Tuesdays. And I especially wanted to say thank you for today, for allowing the youth to come and talk with you and then go home before the evening got very late for them because they have school and they have a lot of homework. And that actually is very, very nice of you guys, and we very much appreciate that you took the time to do that today. We hope that we were able to explain and talk about our program to you. And if you have ever any questions about Youth Court, please call us, and we'll do our best to answer those questions for you. So thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Trainee?
For the letters, we did get all of these, and every assembly member has them, so tell the kids thank you.
We'll do that. Thank you.
Appreciate you being here.
Thank you. There doesn't appear any other question. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Anyone else at all? This hearing is now closed. Yes?
Is it possible to pose a couple of questions to administration before we close,
Yes.
if you don't mind?
Yes.
Mr. Michaelis, or whoever would be appropriate, I just recently had some discussion about the potential impact of the loss of the wetlands planner, in that my understanding is that if we lose that position, then potentially we're going to increase costs of any kind of wetlands development, because the state, since we had that position, didn't get as involved in any kind of wetlands development. Could we have a little bit of discussion about the impact of this reduction?
I noted the question when it came up earlier tonight. I wrote it down, and I'll get an answer and get it to the Assembly.
So you're going to give a written answer on that?
I will, yes.
Okay, then, two other real quick ones. The loss of, I understand there are two addressing positions and one's gone. Are we caught up now so that we've got a fairly accurate database that shows addressing, so we don't, shades of the Godfrey incident, have to deal with any problems like that again?
Get an answer on it, but remember that was one of the positions that was presented to us as an option by the department head, but we'll get you an answer.
Okay.
Where we are. We'll get you an answer on the status of where we are in the addressing throughout.
Okay, the last one I've got is the code enforcement. My understanding is that code enforcement complaints have dramatically increased. And so with loss of this position, what kind of impact? So those are the three that I've just discovered in the last week that I'd like to have a little more discussion about.
Okay. We'll get the Assembly the answer.
Thank you. There appears to be no special orders, no unfinished agenda. Any audience participation? Sorry, Mr. Flynn, you weren't.
Yeah, just would like to follow up on Ms. Osiander's comments. And I've submitted some questions in writing to Ms. Jensen, so I presume those will come back to me. But in the intervening weeks, we've heard discussion of restoration of the campfire reduction, and we've had some discussions about ways to address youth court. To the extent there's going to be further changes from the S version, the B budget, and what we'll be considering on November, it'd be good to know what those specifically are and what the fund sources are, if there are going to be any.
Sure. Well, I can speak to the campfire one. We made the commitment to campfire that out of the Mayor's Community Grant monies, we would indeed be able to incorporate them into next year's budget.
Does that mean we're reducing the community grant pool available to other?
No, because we always keep a reserve, like we were able this year to provide the money to the John Thomas tenants. Okay. There's always things that come up, but in this year we'll just be a little more proactive and get the campfire the funding. As far as the others, I think tomorrow is your deadline for assembly amendments, and what we'll do, isn't it tomorrow, Wednesday?
No, it's Wednesday the 7th, I think.
Okay, you got a week to go still. Yeah. So I think what we can do is work with you, maybe give you a heads up on things that we're thinking, so that we don't duplicate amendments from the assembly as well. There aren't many. Just, I mean, campfire's one, and there might be one or two small other ones, but
okay. That would be appreciated. Thank you, Mr.
You bet.
Ms. Osiander.
Sorry, this is the last chance, I think, in many ways. Before with youth court, you talked about some frustration with how it was structured. If there is an amendment about youth court, would you recommend inclusion of where it's structured, where it's placed, or would you like to handle that yourself, depending on what we do?
Yeah, I think what we're going to try and do is consolidate all the miscellaneous grants that are held in Park and Rec, held in Health and Human Services, and literally roll them all into the Mayor's Community Grant Program, because then there's an evaluation process, there's a lot of information they have to provide, and so we really have the chance to do a really good analysis of just what services are being provided to how many people, and I think the consolidation under one roof makes some sense.
Okay, so basically, I heard you saying, no, don't say where it goes.
Well, like I say, I think our intent will be to say it's going to go under the Mayor's Community Grant Program.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right. I think that's good.
Okay. Any audience participation? Then I would...
Burn.
Thank you. Thank you. This meeting's adjourned.